Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 8 of 10 as we make our way closer and closer to the season finale, but not without a stop by the Italian Temple of Speed, known as the Monza Grand Prix circuit. Or in thought as the Auto-German National di Monza, this circuit is a classic amongst road racing series in the fact that whilst it's a more simplistic design compared to the modern day circuits, simple at its core is the key fundamental that is the ultimate need for speed. With 11 corners separated by 4 extended straights, this is a circuit like no other when it comes to average overall speed over the course of a lap, and our drivers will need to be fast on the accelerator pedal in return to full throttle and bold on the brakes if they wish to come away from here today the victor in their respective class. Because if there's one thing that's certain about Monza, every mile per hour matters as you make your way out of a corner and down to the next corner sequence. But as our drivers get ready to go racing in the background, currently in their final practice warm-up session, let's take you through your schedule for tonight. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time at UTC. It's as follows. In just under what is 14 minutes time, we'll be heading to the qualifying session. That'll be 25 minutes in duration. We'll see all our drivers out of the circuit in a relative set of groups, and they'll be seeing our drivers look to get their best possible lap time to set themselves up for success as we then head to the grid for our first race of today. That'll be, of course, the 20-minute sprint, due to kick off at approximately 25 past 8 this evening. And as our drivers look to take on the circuit, they'll be looking to try and go hard and fast around here, and in 20 minutes there'll be no tyre preservation and no worries about fuel. The only thing will be to be right at the front and lead the way to the checkered flag. Get it right and they'll pick up some major points, and then they'll be taking a brief break before returning at approximately 5 past 9 this evening for the build up to our second race of the day, and that'll be the 60-minute feature of the more strategic variety in terms of the pit stop that's on the cards and also the concern around fuel consumption and tyre preservation. But as our drivers get set, well, we can tell you that you're tuning in live by 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are on YouTube right now, you're at the YouTube channel of Next Gen Race. If you go to youtube.com and search for Next Gen Race, you can tune in there. Alternatively, if you're a Facebook user, you can always tune in via facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing. Or lastly, if you're more Twitch inclined, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in live on Twitch. Who is TX141? Well, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all your racing action tonight, and indeed for the remainder of the series that continues to put our drivers through the trials and tribulations. And last week was no exception, because as we take a look at our calendar in terms of what's preceded before us and what's still to await us. Well, last time out on the 8th of March, we were at none other than the Circuit de la Sarthe or Le Mans in France in the second of our 3 endurance rounds of the season. There in round number 7, we got to see drama at the front and the rear of the field. It didn't matter what class of car, indeed what class of driver, there was plenty of drama, including the battle between Gaz Williams and Chris Daines in the LMDH Gold class, and also further down in the GT3 Bronze class, we saw the rivalry between what was Daniel Stimmon and Jordan Babewell come to full fruition. And in the middle classes, I almost lose my voice already, we did have the battle between Gavin Gardner and peers, including Eric Benson, in trying to take on home the win in the GT3 Gold class. But going into tonight, of course, with only 3 rounds remaining, well, it's the 15th of March today, and we're in Italy. But after today, we'll make our way back to France on the 22nd of March for the Magny-Cours circuit, known in full as the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. And then our final sprint and feature race round of the season, we've seen our drivers being taken to the task of using their cars around a very highly technical circuit to score the best possible set of points before it all comes down to the season finale, round 10 of 10 on the 29th of March, which will be the final endurance race round of the season, and none other than the Daytona Road Course in the state of Florida in the United States of America. But preceding all this, and indeed our round last week, we started off back on the 18th of January at the Fuji Speedway, and in Japan we've got things underway with a stellar start for many a driver in the sprint and feature combination there, before making our way to Germany on the 25th of January for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit. Then on the 1st of February, in round number 3, it was the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit in the United Kingdom, where we got to see the wide open spaces of the British circuit really deliver with regards to multi-class racing action. And then in our 4th round, our first endurance race round, we made our first visit to the United States of America for the Road America circuit in the picturesque Elkhart Lake Village in the state of Wisconsin. On the 15th through to the 22nd of February, due to technical issues with iRacing, we held our 5th round at Spa-Francorchamps in the sprint and feature combo. And of course, we made our second visit to the United States of America for the state of Indiana and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway circuit on the 1st of March on that sprint and feature combo combination there. A very tight, twisty and slippery circuit. But as the rounds continue on today, and particularly after the round at Le Mans last time out, our drivers now know that points are absolutely critical and they're running out of opportunities. But speaking of opportunities, let's take an opportunity to take a look at our Drivers' Championship standings going into tonight. And we start off with the LMDH Gold class. And as we can see here, after prevailing last time out at Le Mans, Gaz Williams continues to lead the way now by 13 points over Jamie Dorey, but that margin is very quickly reversible if Williams drops the ball. But he has been Mr. Consistent over the last couple of rounds and really delivered on the maximum possible points. And with Jamie Dorey there picking up a third place finish last time out, he'll be looking to do better today to make sure Gaz Williams does not get his way. Benjamin McCluskey meanwhile stays in P3 on 205 points, picking up the fastest lap last time out and second place with it, with Craig Jones moving into P4 ahead of Chris Daines there, with Chris Daines having the early retirement, of course, after the unfortunate incident with Gaz Williams, and Jones now standing in P4, looking to hold off the fast China NXTGEN Racing Pink driver. In P6, Magna Yolland there with another good result ahead of Rafael DeSantis, with William Fowl completing the standings there on 15 points in P8. We then come on to the LMDH Silver class, and we can see here Paul Williams continues to lead the way and breaking away from his peers, now 36 points clear after another win on his cards, and with you can see that they're 9th and 10th last time out. Now he's got to worry about the fact that the Speed9 esports driver has his teammate and peer Mark Baker chasing behind in P3, picking up that second place in the fastest lap on 191 points. Baker will also be looking to try and dethrone Seagate from P2, and they'll both be looking to close down their teammate, their leading teammate of Paul Williams, going through the last 3 rounds. Callum Jenkins meanwhile in P4 then 111 points. He's well clear of David Harney in P5 on 39 points, with Jason Ashfield and Wayne Douglas yet to attend a single round and therefore yet to accrue a point. We then come on to the LMP2 class, and we can see here Kevin Stringer in the lead currently by 13 points over Nigel Stock. The gap between the two teammates right now, in fact, apologies, not two teammates, two rivals we should say. Indeed, they did come to blows last time out at Le Mans, and with that 13-point differential, Kevin Stringer has been the man to beat, but Nigel Stock has proven to be very fast, indeed as fast, if not slightly faster than Kevin Stringer on an individual lap, and hence the fastest lap points going there to Nigel Stock last time out. And the question will be, will the run of form continue, or can Nigel Stock bring home a victory or a pair of victories today that will see him turn the tables and start to close that gap down? We'll keep in mind that Mark Sykes continues to press on there in P3 after running with an injury last time out, and on 215 points they're fighting to a resilient third, with Barry Jarman in P4, the man to hunt down in terms of the fastest man on circuit. But in P4 on 130 points, he's still got a way to go if he wants to be in the fight for the championship win come the end of the season. We can also see David Maggioni there in P5 on 0 points, but I'm very pleased to say that Maggioni will be attending as of tonight, and therefore we'll get to see the Italian taking to the Monza circuit, his home circuit, and looking to deliver on his debut. We then come to the GT3 classes, starting with the GT3 Gold class, and we can see that it's Frederic Stensbo-Durey who continues to lead the way, 26 points clear of Gavin Gardner, but with the absence of his presence on the podium last time out, Durey now really does seem to be finding himself in a bit of a hunting situation, whereby he's hunting for victory, but he's also being hunted by Gavin Gardner, who continues to close the gap, and Eric Benson not too far behind after emphatic victory at Le Mans. Russell Fowler, meanwhile, in P4, not picking up major points last time out and continues to drop away slightly from the top 3, only a point clear of Magnus Fullerton Bjerkeke. Both drivers there suffering at Le Mans, and by comparison, Ole Martin Muir picking up major points there now on 154 and closing on the top 5. Johan Essen in P7 there, another strong result from the driver, and as a result he'll be looking to try and get into the top 6, albeit the 6-point delta there, and only holding 14 points over Stefan Wessels. We can imagine that Wessels, the flying South African, will be looking to make his way back onto the top step of the podium today. Dean Fairclough in P9 with a strategic error last time out, losing out on the win at the very late stages of Le Mans, but picking up the fastest lap, and Ryan G. Walker completing the top 10 on 94 points. Best of the rest, Liam McNeely in P11 ahead of Adam Delman, and John Higgins Jr. completes our championship standings. We then come on to the GT3 Silver class meanwhile, and we can see here that Baz Meacham continues to lead the way, albeit having to battle hard to finish on the podium last time out, but a resilient third place finish means that his advantage has not been carved in as much as perhaps it could have if things had gone a different way, and Ollie Wayne picking up the win last time out and moving into P2 ahead of Ben Bennyworth, but 4 points separating the two rivals who are trying to chase down Meacham, and you can see there it only takes 1 round to be dropped by Meacham and he'll find himself back in a three-way fight for the championship win. Paul Scott only a further 7 points to offer Ben Bennyworth there, don't count him out, nor Stefan Albanese on 191 points. The DRS esports driver continuing to fight on, albeit it didn't quite work out last time at Le Mans, but I get the feeling today Monza may suit his style of driving a little bit more, given he's gone well here in the past. Espresso Rien in P6 and 167 points, now steering clear of Jack Barker, who sits a further Willis there 22 points behind, and the Made for Racing driver is now 13 points clear of Tom Bingham, with Matthew Addy and Aaron Racy completing the top 10. Mark Harrismith best the rest in P11, and Brandon Hay completes the championship standings. We then go on to the GT3 Bronze class. And we can see it's Jordan Baybois who continues to lead the standings, albeit with only 16 points between himself and Ingar Almklov. He has technically opened that advantage up a little bit further, so why are we saying only? Well, if you look to P3 there, the man who put his name out there at Le Mans, Daniel Stibben, the Czech Republic driver who absolutely flew high and kept Baybois at bay over the course of the entire race. They finished only separated by seconds come the end of the 2 hours, but the Mercedes driver made a statement, which is he's in this fight for the championship as well. Elwin Sykes, meanwhile, dropping a P4, 6 points behind, and looking for a better run of fortune today, with Jorge Santos in P5, now 7 points clear of Eric Sveston, with Sean Scooter and Artie Chats-Constantou completing the standings. We then come on to the Teams Championship standings meanwhile, and we can see Speed9 Esports continue to lead the way, growing the advantage a further 2 points as the last time out, and now standing what is 41 points clear of SCCR Sim Sports. Next Gen Racing Purple ahead of Next Gen Racing Orange in P3, P4, with Team Slow-Mo a further good portion of points behind now in P5, and keeping ahead of the sister outfit Team Slow-Mo Leftovers, who are in P6. Racing Team Astra fighting on P7, only 34 points off of the top 6 now, and holding an advantage of 35 points over Next Gen Racing Pink, with DRS Esport and Team Slow-Mo Black completing at the top 10. And then best of the rest, only what is there a further 29 points behind. Performance Link Esports had a Rossum's Universal Robots, with Made for Racing and Rocket Racing Stars completing the standings. But as we come to our circuit for today, it is none other than the Autodromo Nacional di Monza, the Grand Prix layout of which located in the city of Monza in Italy. This circuit, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, thank you to them for their wonderful simulator and of course their brilliant circuit maps. It's a circuit that's very simple on paper, but indeed a very tricky one to get absolutely right because of how important every mile an hour is. And as our drivers make their way across the start finish line and down towards turn number 1 and 2, they're heading to Prima Variante or the Rettifilo chicane and braking hard there in our GT3s down from 160 miles an hour, in our LMDHs down from 175 miles an hour. They'll come all the way down the gearbox, the slowest pair of corners on the circuit. Make it out and power their way out through turn number 3, Curva Grande or Curva Pisano. They'll head up towards the second heavy braking zone, a Seconda Variante or the second chicane, also known as the Regia chicane, and braking hard there is the faster transition between the two apexes before they make their way into the two medium speed apex corners of the Lesmos. Lesmo 1 at turn number 6, Lesmo 2 at turn number 7, with the second Lesmo being slightly slower compared to the first one. And as they head out, they head down the Seraglio curve or the Seraglio straight, depending on your preference. And as they head up towards the Ascari chicane or Variante Ascari, the third and final chicane, they'll find the hard and fast combination of left, right, left there at medium speed, catching them out if they don't handle it right. Indeed, they'll want to be back on the throttle, full throttle by the time they exit turn 9 to charge down towards Parabolica curve. Heading into the final corner, it's all about getting the apex time to perfection and getting back to full throttle as soon as possible to power out and do it all again for a multitude of laps in each race. Now, to remind you of the rules, of course, for the sprint and feature race rounds, in terms of setup, this is a fixed setup series with setups provided ahead of each round, but you can imagine the setup provided today is going to be low downforce in nature with the Monza circuit, and in terms of driver classes, those are finalised back in round number 3. Qualifying-wise, an open qualifying format shall be used to split into 2 equal halves. We'll see in the first 12 minutes being dedicated to the GT3 classes, and then we'll see the final 12 minutes being dedicated to the Proto classes, so the LMDHs and the LMP2s, with a 1 minute transition period between the two classes being on circuit. As for the rules of the races, in the sprint race, we'll see the race commencing via a rolling start in the designated green flag zone, which is the run out of the final corner up towards the start-finish line. The same applies in the feature race. Drivers shall have 1 fast repair available in the sprint, and they shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. In the feature race, there'll be 2 fast repairs available by contrast, and the grid order shall be a class reverse grid based on results of the sprint race, and drivers who did not finish the sprint shall start from the back of their respective class. As for drive-through penalties, those will be activated for a drive. They accumulate 25 or more instant points, and drivers are expected to make 1 mandatory pit stop in the feature race in which fuel must be taken, but changing tyres is entirely optional. Indeed, our drivers may opt to change a couple of tyres during the refueling time, given the 2 things happen in synchronicity, or in fact in parallel we should say, but alternatively you may see some drivers decide to brave it on a single set of tyres and not worry about getting the new tyres up to temperature. But either way they cut it, it's going to be a thriller. But I know what you're all here for. You're not for rules and regulations, you're here for rough and rugged racing, and as our drivers get ready to go racing here, well, we do look so drivers are making their way on around at the moment, and in fact one driver parked up there in the pit lane, and we can see it, Daniel Stibben from Rossum's Universal Robots, the man with a plan last time out at Le Mans, and can he make it another pair of victories today after his victory in the endurance race round? But as he gets ready to go racing, we look Salva drives out on circuit, including Kevin Stringer as he makes his way on round out to the final corner here with 1.5 minutes left to go in this final practice session. and the SCCR SimSports driver knows that if he does pick up a pair of wins today, or indeed a strong pair of results, it will definitely help him just give himself a little bit of leverage going into the final 2 rounds. With rounds starting to come down, and therefore the number of points available with drop scores also an effect on our championship standings, it does mean now drivers will really need to nail these results on, because they're looking to improve rather than just earn points from this point onwards. But it's not just about our LMP2 driver here looking to try and keep his championship crown intact. We're also looking at drivers such as Magnus Jonsson here in the LMDH Gold class who are looking to carry on all the momentum they're building over the last couple of rounds. And the Team Slomo Black driver, whilst he wasn't the pace at the mod, he definitely had the consistency compared to his peers and picked up a good result as a result, as the Norwegian today once again may find himself slightly off the pace, but indeed with the high threshold of mistakes here at the Monza Grand Prix circuit under braking, and these LMDH is known for their lack of ABS and therefore the high propensity to lock up under braking into a corner, particularly in the early stages with heavy braking. It could mean that cold brakes will catch up many, but not Jonsson. But as we do say hello in the YouTube chat there to Pavel F, who says good evening all. Good evening to you, Pavel. I hope you're doing well, all set for the racing. Indeed, regardless of which media platform you're tuning in, whether it be YouTube, Twitch or Facebook, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. We don't bite here at NXTGEN Racing. I hope you're all doing very well so far. This lovely Wednesday the 15th of March, and indeed you're all set for some fantastic racing action. As the checker flag comes out in the final practice session, we are now only moments away from going into qualifying. So as we begin the transition into the qualifying session, then it'll be our GT3s who make their way out onto circuit first and foremost. And what can we expect in qualifying? Well, we have to keep in mind that normally what you'd see in a qualifying session around the Monza circuit, and if you've tuned into Formula 1 recently or over the last couple of years, you'll have seen this, and it really has become the Monza slipstream train as it's known, where all drivers try to queue up on the final corner. Indeed, in the rundown towards the final corner at the Curva Parabolica, and then they look to essentially get the slipstream off of one another to go onto a lap, with the majority of the lap being at full throttle, and indeed straight line speed being such a major factor. And every couple of miles now you can gain in the slipstream effect down towards the next corner can be pivotal, and it's enable you to gain what is effectively half a second to an entire second in some respects if you get it absolutely right. Now, we say that, however, iRacing recently was updated with a new season of content, Season 2 at 2023, and as part of that, the slipstream model for GT3s in particular, but also LMP2s to a lesser extent, was updated. And, well, what exactly has been updated? The rumour mill is that the slipstream effects have been significantly reduced, and from what I've been hearing from some drivers down the paddock, the slipstream effects have been made almost negligible unless you're within a couple of tenths of a driver, and even then you'll only gain 1 to 2 miles an hour maximum down the extended straight. So it's going to be interesting to see how the change in the slipstream will affect our drivers' approaches to today's racing, and indeed whether it will have as big an impact as we're hearing is being rumoured, and also in the LMP2 class here the slipstream effect has been significantly reduced as well. Not quite to the same extent, but it comes close, and therefore the tone may not be as important here, and we could imagine that some drivers may opt to do their qualifying session without the aid of the slipstream. But as they make the way around, we do say hello to Elbit80 sites there in the YouTube chat, getting the alliteration on point, and as we say hello there to the racing team Astra driver, well, we look forward to seeing how he gets on as we see him making his way on around right now, dropping a message before he got in the BMW M4. Lovely livery on that car, of course, really stands out, the RTA machine, as he makes his way down. We've seen Elwin Sights go very strongly in the sprint and feature combinations in recent rounds. Of course, if we look back to Spa-Francorchamps, really the man to beat in the G3 bronze class when it came to outright pace, and can he continue that today? But also one driver who we do need to say hello to once again, Russell Fowler here as he crosses the timeline in the Performance Link Esports Mercedes. The G3 Gold driver absent over the last couple of rounds in terms of being right up there, perhaps fighting for the win of the race. But see, he can be guaranteed of one thing: if he senses there's an opportunity to take a win or a podium, he will go all in and all for it. And as he makes way out of turns 1 and 2, with the Mercedes shining on him, we are expecting the Mercedes to be quite strong over the course of the lap of the Monza Grand Prix circuit. Perhaps not as strong as the likes of the Ferrari in the G3 class, because it doesn't quite have the top end speed, but the one thing the Mercedes definitely does have is the acceleration out of the corners, the ability to get up to top gear faster than most, and that's all due to that wonderful V8 6.3 litre engine, naturally aspirated of course, and as he powers his way out of the second chicane there and makes his way up to Lesmos. Into Lesmo 1 he goes. Well, Fowler Hill know it's all about getting that qualifying absolutely done and dusted to perfection, and then trying to move on in the race and make further ground. But as he comes through Lesmo 2 right now, very shortly right on board with one of our drivers to give you a reference lap here around the Monza Grand Prix circuit. As he heads on down, we do look to Espresso Reed, who goes on to what is his first flying lap of this qualifying session in the Team Slomo Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo. And well, it's at its home circuit, the Ferrari, of course, the Italian stallion machine, and we are expecting the Ferrari to go strong here. It does seem to naturally go very strong at Monza, and that's not brand brand bias or anything along those lines, but with the Ferrari having a very strong top gear in terms of the top speeds it can reach, but it takes a very long time to get there, well, the Ferrari has got the length of the straight in order to be able to get to those top end speeds and therefore deliver. And with also its handling characteristics, which means it's very potent through the chicanes, and particularly for Ascari, the Ferrari could be a winning combination for Espresso Ian as he makes his way down towards the Regia chicane, breaking his way on down. But as he comes on through it, we now start to hear all the drivers are setting their initial provisional times, and we see Stefan Vetter make his way through the final corner, and we jump on board here with the Racing Team Astra Audi driver as he heads on around for a flying lap. He's coming out of the final corner and powering his way to the timeline, staying over to the right side to shorten the run to get an initial time on the board. But as he heads down towards turn at number 1, brings the car gently over to the left here, using the full width of the circuit as he gets ready to pound onto the brakes and braking at what will be the 150 metre, in fact a little bit later as he goes as late as possible, 125 metres all the way down to first gear, and now making his way back up the gearbox, up to second, up to third. The Audi very fast in terms of accelerating up through the gearbox, but now he'll start to feel as he heads up into fifth gear. This is where the Audi becomes a bit exposed on the straight, but as he heads for Curva Grande flat out here through turn number 3, lets the car roll out to the left before bringing it over to the right, looks to his right hand side for the marshalling post there, braking at about 105 metres down to second gear, clattering over the apex curve at turn number 4, clears the Regia chicane and now up towards the Lesmo 1. Now getting ready for the medium apex speed corner here, braking as late as possible, braking about 40 metres from corner apex, using the full runoff area there as he powers out and heads up towards Lesmo 2, and here using the 50 metre ball, braking at it down to third gear, all good at speed, and gets it slightly wrong there. In fact, I think he did pick up a track limit invalidation for running a little bit wide coming out of what was Lesmo 1, and therefore deciding to abort the lap. But you can see there just how hard he was pushing, and he pushed a little bit too hard in and run a little bit wide, just put a toe slightly out or a wheel in the case of the car, slightly out on the exit of Lesmo 1 by looks of things, and therefore has decided to go back to the pits. But as we do see Wayne's making his way out to the final corner here, we will try and get another onboard lap shortly to give you that full GT3 perspective. Well, Wayne currently the fastest in the GT3 Silver class on a 148.150, and as he crosses the timeline there, does not improve. But meanwhile, we've got more drivers making their way around, including Russell Fowler, who's now moved up to P1, the GT3 Gold class. He's dethroned Eric Benson from the pole position time. But as we do see Benson making his way out the final corner, we jump on board with the Audi driver here as he comes on around, and then we can hopefully pick up from where Stefan Vessel's left off, but this time it's with the team slow-mo driver. As he heads on down here with the delta between himself and Fowler standing at 1.7 temps currently, well, he's going to have to go a bit faster than 50.658 to improve. The target will be at 47.6 as he breaks his way down. Indeed, when these cars are light on fuel, they can brake almost at 100 metre board there, but we'll be expecting under race fuel they'll be braking at about 140 to 135 metres into turns 1 and 2 as he powers his way out and now makes his way out towards turns 4 and 5. The key thing our drivers have got to be aware of when they connect to apex of the chicane is they want to really stab at the throttle pedal as they make their way out of turn 1 into 2, and the same here for turns 4 into 5, because they want to carry as much speed between the two apexes, and that's where all the lap time is gained and lost, is between the connections. But as he powers out there, clattering over the curve, beautiful line from Benson, and as he heads into Lesmo 1, hooks it up into third gear here, brings it through apex at 87 miles an hour, doesn't run as wide as perhaps he could have there, just missing a few millimetres, but still it's going to be fine margins. He comes out Lesmo 2 in third gear, now powering up the gearbox, down the Cerro Clear straight he goes, heading all the way out towards Ascari. He's done the majority of lap, but now here comes the most punishing combination of corners where you've got to get it absolutely perfect. Looking to his right hand side for his brake marker, braking at the 100 metre board, down from 6th into third gear, over the apex of 8, came in onto the apex of turn number 9, and then rolled his way through, flat out through turn number 10. 2 wheels in the white lines there, absolutely precise, and as he makes his way down towards turn at number 11, getting ready to break his way down here. You can see Benson bringing it on through and looking to his left hand side for the 50 board, braking exactly at the board down to third gear, nice and tight to the apex curve, back on the pan immediately, and now as he powers out he gets right on the throttle, heads up towards the timeline here, stays over to the right to shorten the run. He thinks he's on a good lap, and as he heads on down it's going to be an improvement, or is it? It is an improvement by 1.5 tenths, but it's not enough to dethrone Fowler. Fowler stays on pole position in the G3 Gold class, but it's only 200ths between the two of them as the times are continuing to come on down, and we've still got 4 minutes of the G3 qualifying session to go. But meanwhile, we look to the G3 Bronze Pole Sitter provisional, and that is Sean Scott of the Racing Team Astra. He's only a tenth faster than Daniel Stimman, with Ingot Almklov in P3 a further 10th and a half off currently. And we can see in the chat there Chris Daines, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat, saying good luck everyone. Just just heading on my way home from work now, but feeling quite unwell, so going to watch this one in bed when I'm back. Well, Chris, we're sorry to hear you're feeling unwell, but hopefully the fact that you're able to tune into the race in action, we know you'll be missing it from your bed, but at the same time, hopefully it can bring a smile to your day, and we hope you feel better soon, because we do miss seeing you out on the circuit, good sir. And we also see Sir Bottle Job there, also known, of course, as the GT3 Silver driver of Jack Barker, saying, guess that's me starting at the back. Internet cuts out for 5 seconds, and that's unfortunate for the made for racing driver there, but you never know what you may find from the back of the grid in the GT3s, given the higher rate of instant into turns 1 and 2 on the opening lap of any race at Monza. Indeed, the curse race of Monza turn 1, it's enough to send a shiver down even the most composed spine of a racing driver. But as we do see Scooter heading down towards Ascari right now, 3 minutes still on the clock for the GT3 Bronze Stripe. Indeed, all the GT3 drivers currently, well, he has got a reasonable advantage, but a 10th is not much in the bigger picture at Monza. Indeed, a 10th can be gained or lost on a single straight if you absolutely nail that corner exit and also find a little bit of toe. But meanwhile, as we do look to our GT3 Silver driver, Matthew Addy, who you can see just behind in the Porsche 911 GT3R. And the Porsche drivers here are going to really be up against the odds, we reckon, today. The Porsche, of course, having a reputation in iRacing in terms of the current balance of points for being the slowest car in terms of top end, but very strong through the corners. But our Porsche drivers are Ben Bennyworth, P3 of the G3 Silver class, and Addy P5 in the same class. They're both trying to prove a point here, which is the Porsche is competitive, but I think it will be the longevity of the Porsche of the race which may make the difference. As we see the Espresso rear did improve to 48.372. Addy not finding it through, and as he goes onto his penultimate lap, as he charges down into the Rettifidio chicane and coming up through the right into left combination here, will nail it absolutely perfectly in every small item here with regards to apex, with regards to exit curbing, throttle application, brakes, you name it, matters. He makes his way through turn number 3 and up towards 4 or 5, but as he comes charged on through, we look to Ben Bennyworth running a new livery for today, and will the number 96 driver always stand out in terms of his performances. And right now the Mr. Consistent of the GT3 Silver class making his way through at Lesbo 2 and trying to find just a little bit more time as he makes his way on down the Cerro straight. Apparent on down here, of course, he'll know that he's at a slight disadvantage on the straights, and therefore it's all going to come from the corners as he heads on down towards the braking zone for Ascari. But you can see here the Porsche driver as he makes his way on through. This is where the Porsche will really carry the speed by comparison. It will look absolutely planted compared to its peers, and as he makes his way out to turn number 10, heading on down towards the final corner now, well, he's not got long to go in terms of one more lap available to him. Stays over to the right initially, with the fact you can see that Stefano Albanese, the Dearest Esport Audi driver there, tucked in behind, trying to pick up a little bit of a distant toe. Ollie Wayne improves the provisional pole lap of the GT3 Silver class to a 48.094, and as Ben Bennyworth comes out the final corner, a bit of a slow run out the corner, stays over, and you can see Albanese coming through. But meanwhile, we have to look over here briefly to Ingot Almclov, who sets the time in tower alight in the GT3 Bronze class with 48.239, and between him and Scooter, it is only at 16 thousandths that separates the two bronze drivers from that pole position slot. And meanwhile, in terms of the margins and the pole laps in the respective G3 classes, with the G3 Gold pole time currently held by this man, Russell Fowler, from Performance Lake Esports at 47.7. And then only 3 tenths off of him is Ollie Wayne from the GT3 Silver pole lap, and then a further 2 tenths back is Ingot Almclov. It is going to be incredibly close here, and I can tell you right now, as we show you the standings overall, this is how the GT3 drivers are all mixed together, with the LMDHs and the Proto LMP2s that are yet to put their laps in. And you can see right now a top 5 of gold drivers in the GT3 class. Then we've got silver and bronze drivers mixing things up all the way through the GT3 class order, and Jorge Santos at the bottom, 2.8 seconds off of the overall pace, and just not able to find the lap time currently, but you never know what he may find later on in the race. But as we see Scooter heading on down here on his final qualifying lap, can anybody else improve now in these late stages? We're hearing that Frederick Stenford Dorey has got it wrong going at the final corner. Meanwhile, there's Scooter deciding to park it up on the exit of Regia. No more time available to him, and now Ingot Almclov, meanwhile for team at slow-mo, making his way on down the final stretch here as he heads up towards Parabolica Curve, and in that Ferrari looking faster at the moment. And with Scooter currently in the pit lane, well, he's not going to be improving, and now it'll be Almclov who will try to improve just a little bit more, and also can Stimon find a way to move into P2, or perhaps even dethrone Almclov right at the finish. As we do see here the Ferrari driver heading out the final corner, he has not improved, he's decided enough's enough. Meanwhile, Eric Benson Currently P2 in the G3 Gold class by 200ths off of Fowler. It's going to come down to the smallest of margins here, but he does not improve. He decides to come into the pit, so it will be Fowler who's on pole, we believe, for the G3 Gold class, unless Johan Ersson can find a way to improve right at the end here. But meanwhile, as we see Matthew Addy coming out the final corner, will he be improving? No, he comes into the pit lane. And Daniel Stimmer, meanwhile, he's also coming on in. I think they're all coming in fact, as Ersson comes in. So that is the G3 qualifying session complete. And it's Russell Fowler on gold pole. It is Ollie Wayne on silver pole. And it's Al Clov on bronze pole. And now it's time for us to immediately transition over to the Proto class qualifying session now, with just under 12 minutes remaining here. And we can see the LMP2 driver Kevin Stringer making his way all around, doing a little bit of side to side, but weaving at the moment to try and get a little bit of sidewall tyre temperature into the car. And also we do have a good number of drivers we haven't seen in a little while, including the LMDH Silver class here, none other than Callum Jenkins, the privateer, running the team hard colours, of course. And as he makes his way out to turn number 10 and down towards 11, where he's getting himself set up for success, he makes his way on past Mark Sykes there in the LMP2 at Dallara P217 machine. And as we do see Jenkins make his way under braking here, of course now the tone's going to be a little bit different for our Proto class drivers, for the simple reason the track has been rubbered in by the GT3s. Also, track temperature has arisen slightly, and to put that in perspective in terms of just how much it's risen up over the course of the GT3 portion of the session, we can show you on the weather on the right hand side. We do currently have an ambient of 19 degrees centigrade, but a track temperature of 28 degrees centigrade. But that temperature is going to be locked in. And speaking of locking in, we're making sure not to lock up the brakes, as we also do have another driver off, and I believe, well, that was Kevin Stringer getting it wrong as well in the MP2 class, but Barry Jarman not having any issues by comparison as the SCCR Supersport driver connects the two apexes. But coming back to the weather point here, with 28 degrees track temperature and overcast conditions, it means that track temperature will rise and it will stabilise after a point, and that will aid our drivers. The track temperature is not going to get overly hot at all over the course of this qualifying session. Indeed, if the cloud stays over, it is going to be quite stable conditions for the purposes of our races today. But with a number of drivers getting it wrong there into turn one under braking, including Jenkins and also Stringer, well, they'll have plenty of time to try and make amends. But meanwhile, looking up from drivers and making their way around to the back of the qualifying pack here towards the one at the very front of the pack, well, it is none other than Gaz Williams, the LMDH Gold Championship leader, as he comes on through the final corner, powering his way out. And as he makes his way to the timeline, we'll jump on board with Williams for a flying lap as he takes us around and across the timeline. He's powering his way down towards turn one, up to top gear, and as he gets ready to brake into turn one at 176 miles an hour, and they're braking at the 200 metre ball, coming all the way down the gearbox to first gear and making his way between the two connecting apexes here, and now powering back up through the gearbox, aggressive as it goes, as the V8 hybrid of the BMW M machine makes its way through turn at number 3, flat out here, of course, just slight steering inputs, keep the car nice and tight and let it drift out. We'll bring it over to the right hand side for the braking zone, braking at the 100 metre board, coming all the way down from top gear into second, transition between the apexes of 4 and 5, and then head up towards turn at number 6. And here, of course, with the transition into medium speed apex, now it's all about trail braking rather than heavy braking. And as he makes his way through in 4th gear, now heading up towards Lesmo 2, braking at the 50 board down to 3rd gear. You can see the difference in the approach to the corner, a much tighter approach to the apex curve, and therefore having to be a bit more sensitive on the speed. But as he makes his way down, Seraglio heading all the way up, keeping the car over to the left-hand side and letting one of his teammates through. Then, in fact, I think Williams decided to back off and use this lap to try and regain a little bit of battery, as we do jump outside the car of Williams, and we do wait for the next flying lap delivered by one of our drivers that we can ride on board with. Already you can see there the feral velocity of the LMDH machine and just how fast it is around this Monza circuit, as our drivers get themselves set up for the best possible laps they can deliver. And we're speaking to the driver right now, he's trying to go a little bit faster. Mark Baker here, currently at 6/10 off of Paul Williams' provisional pole time in the LMDH Silver class, and the Speed 9 Esports driver will be looking to improve. There's no question about it as he heads on through the final corner and around. Paul Williams currently continues to set the time high, but he is not improving that time around. Meanwhile, Mark Baker goes on to a new flying lap, but Benjamin McCluskey absolutely attacking this lap, gone purple in sectors 2 and also 4, and as he crosses the timeline, what's he going to be able to do? That's P2 there for McCluskey in the LMDH Gold class, and on a 33.354, he's only now 700ths of a Gaz Williams' provisional pole time. And I think Williams right now may be hearing over the radio about that and starting to think he's got to put a bit more time together. But meanwhile, looking to a new debutant for tonight, of course. We mentioned earlier on, David Maggioni here in the LMP2 class, and the Italian at his home circuit, currently setting the time in town alight with 38.5 there. But as he crosses the line, it's the case now that Kevin Stringer has taken provisional pole in the LMP2 class by a further 3/10, but Maggioni already making his presence felt by setting some relatively fast lap times in the LMP2 class, and now Stringer will know that he can't be complacent, and neither can Jarman as they make their way on around here with only what is a further 7 minutes to go. Time continues to trickle down. They're halfway through their session, and Maggioni looking to press on here to try and get a provisional pole position in the LMP2 class. We see a driver getting it wrong, and I believe that is Mark Sykes, who's gone for a spin on the exit of what is there, the second chicane at Regia. But as we do see it, Maggioni making his way into Lesbo 2 here, getting himself set up on this lap for the next one. Well, what will be going through his mind at this point in time is, okay, he finds himself in the top 2 of the LMP2 class currently, but Nigel Stock yet to get a time on the board, and we know that Stock can bring those times out of nowhere and deliver them in absolutely brilliant fashion. But as I try to make the way on around, we do look to Nigel Stock heading on down the Seraglio straight, and as he heads it down this time, well, the thing for Stock, of course, the later he leaves it in the session to put a time on the board, that adds a little bit more mental pressure to you as a driver. Some drivers feel it more than most, but I can tell you Nigel Stock won't be feeling the pressure too much, but he'll always have that thought in the back of his mind that he will need to get a time delivered and set, because otherwise he'll be starting at the back of the LMP2 class. And of course, if he does not set a time whatsoever, he'll be starting even further back. He'll be starting at the back of the grid as he makes his way up towards turn number 11. Onto the braking zone he goes here and heads on around. And in fact, we will jump on board with Nigel Stock for the purposes of a flying lap as he comes out of the final corner and gets ready to charge down towards turn number 1. Heading across the timeline, not quite in top gear yet. Very shortly he'll be going up into the 6th gear as he powers his way up to 170 plus miles an hour. Looking to his left-hand side for his braking board, the 154 passes and braking at 120 metres from quarter apex. He comes all the way down the 1st gear, straight lines very sweetly between the 2 apexes of Rettivilio, and now make his way back up the gear. Obviously he heads up towards turn number 4-5 by the way of Curva Grande at turn number 3, and as he powers his way up here, letting the car just gradually drift out. But you can see the car creeping away from apex a little more than he liked, so he has to apply a little bit of additional steering there. Won't cost him too much time, but he brakes in the 100 metre board down to 2nd gear. Through Regia he goes, bouncing over the curb and downshifted to 1st, interestingly, of the transition of the 4th corner into the 5th corner, and therefore unsettled the car a little bit, but gained some rotation in turn 5 as he makes way through 6, just going a little bit deep there on Lesbo 1, and into Lesbo 2 he goes. Well, I think he will still deliver the lap here, conscious of time, but that's going to cost him time if not invalidate the lap. And as he makes his way down the Seraglio straight, of course, just unsettled by that and trying to bring himself back together here, really pushing the lap time. Currently P3, he wants to be on the front row of that LMP2 class grid as he breaks his way from the 100 metre board into Ascari, understeers a little bit initially, but catches the car nicely through the turn 9 apex. As he heads through 10 there, he'll have lost 1 to 2 miles an hour through the entire Ascari complex, but still he's absolutely going for it here. His stops, he makes his way towards turn number 11 with Kengan Stringer right now going fastest of everybody in most sectors in the LMP2 class. Stock will know he really needs to get a move on here as he makes his way through the final corner. He is improving over this lap, but I think he'll feel as though there's a lot more time out there as he heads to the timeline. Stringer improves to 37.900, but Stock crosses the timeline. What can he find out there? Well, I think for Stock it may be an invalidated lap given the fact he did slide a little bit wide at Lesbo 1, but if that time had counted, it would have been a 39.19. In fact, that is not updated on our timing charts here. We're not quite sure of the time that he would have accrued as a result of that, but we can tell you there is that Stock 1.3 seconds of the provisional pole lap set by Stringer, and right now Stringer absolutely trying to put this qualifying session to bed in the LMP2 class. But meanwhile in the LMDH class we do look to Craig Jones, the SCCR Sim Sports driver here, making his way down into turn number 1, currently P4 in the class, and only a 10th of a Jamie Dorey in P3, and you can see there it's a 2x2 in terms of the battle for positions, with the battle for the provisional pole position between Williams and McCluskey only separated by 1.7 tenths, and then we essentially have a whole 4 tenths gap to Dorey, who's only in return at 1.5 tenths faster than Craig Jones. We're making the Yolanda at the moment double the time by comparison, 1.2 seconds of the pole lap, and what is approximately there half a second of a Jones's lap, and therefore Yolanda I think will not be improving too much further unless he can put together some one-lap magic, but say it's not so. Of course, sometimes it just clicks at the last possible moment. As we see Jones making his way out through Lesmo 2 here. McCluskey goes for provisional pole on a 33.081, and that means that Williams is a 10th behind now, as Williams will leave it all to the last 2 laps to try and find the time. And of course, for our LMDH drivers in particular, with that hybrid battery, they want to charge it up as much as possible. It gives them that extra speed in terms of accelerating out of the corners and then onto the extended straights. And whilst these cars are limited in terms of their top speed, eventually they'll hit a limiter. At the same time, the sooner you can get up to that top speed, the better, and the more lap time you gain as a result of it. And therefore, that's why we're seeing a lap on, a lap off in terms of our drivers in the LMDH machines trying to deliver those lap times. But as Jones makes his way out to parabolica curves, improved over the majority of the lap, he gets to the timeline. He's currently 8 tenths off of the provisional pole lap. He's only 1.5 tenths off of Dorey. He crosses the line. What's it going to be? He does improve, but he doesn't improve by much there, only by 200s. And Jones will stay P4, and that is his qualifying session complete. He's thrown everything at it, but it's not been enough in the end. As meanwhile, Williams makes his way down, and we can see one driver going slowly there, and that in fact is the pair of what is McCluskey and Williams as they make the way down. And we do apologise, that's Williams going slowly and McCluskey going fast, but as they make the way on out here right now, as we do see Williams making his way out of Ascari. He's getting himself set up for one final attack here, and it's going to be the showdown between the two Next Gen Racing purple drivers to see who is going to be on pole in their class. As meanwhile, David Maggioni stays P2 in the LMP2 class currently. Kevin Street is 7 tenths faster, but we promised you an onboard lap in the LMDH class, and we're going to give you one now as Gaz Williams goes around here. Battery fully topped up. He's on full attack here, and this is his final lap. He makes his way to the timeline here now, using all the battery to get up to top speed in excess of 180 miles an hour as he heads down towards turn number 1. Looks his left hand side for his brake mark here. 191 miles an hour he brakes from, and as he comes down there from 130 metres, braking the first gear, transitions between the two chicanes of Red's video, and now powering his way back up through the gearbox. Smooth as clockwork there as he makes his way up towards turn 3 as he powers through flat out through the right hander, continues to head up through the gearbox up to 6th gear, shortly into 7th, using the battery once again here as he heads up to in excess of 180 miles an hour before breaking the 100 metre wall down to 2nd gear, clattering over the curbing there of turn 4 as he makes his way out the reduced chicane now towards Lesmo 1 as he breaks his way into turn 6. Down to 3rd gear, absolutely attacking the apex. They're using the downforce of the car as McCluskey steers clear, now breaking into Lesmo 1. Down to 3rd gear, attacks the steering. You can see the car not wanting to comply initially, having to shave off a little bit more speed on turning, but as he makes his way down Cerro Clio, this lap right now not an improvement compared to his previous best in subsectors 1 and 2. It's going to come in the second half of the lap. He breaks his way into Ascari, but coming on down the gearbox there into 3rd, back up to 4th. He uses the upshift to stabilise the car and return the throttle more aggressively as he makes his way out of Ascari, now down towards turn at number 11, up to 6th gear, one more corner as he heads up into 7th now, and from 187 miles an hour he'll break his way down from the 50 metre or down to 3rd gear, absolutely hounding the car down the gearbox. How's out of the final corner, but is this going to be an improvement from Williams? I think he's going to be leaving it all to the line as he heads on through here, and what can Williams deliver right at the end? It's an improvement, but it's not enough. He's 3.5 hundredths off of McCluskey's pole lap on a 33.117. It's a 33.081 that is the recipe for success today, and McCluskey there delivering. Jamie Dorey coming out the final corner. He's gone a bit wide, however. Meanwhile, in the LMDH Silver class, it's Williams who has taken pole position with all drivers in the pit lane. And what about in the LMP2 as the Stock comes out the final corner, where he's currently P2. He's been able to dethrone Maggioni from the front row of their grid, and Maggioni into the pit. So in the end, that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. It's McCluskey on over on the LMDH Gold pole. It is LMDH Silver pole for Paul Williams, and in the LMP2 class, it's Kevin Stringer with David Maggioni on his debut, taking P3 in the class, not far from Nigel Stock's pace. It's definitely going to be an interesting run to turn number 1. But as all our drivers sit in the pit lane currently, we'll very shortly we'll be heading to the grid for our first racer today. But as we do look there too, the chat from Ollie Wayne saying it's nice to be on a track that favours the Mercedes speed, and the G3 Silver class, of course, is Ollie Wayne saying he's got the pace tonight but couldn't put a lap together in qualifying. Of course, qualifying is just one part of the battle, but with the slipstream being a factor here, it is possible to make ground in the race. This circuit is primed to overtaking, but of course, if you can start at the front of your respective class, you do give yourself a little bit of a safety barrier in terms of that run to turns 1 and 2. And with the classes, of course, spacing out when we do get underway, we will expect that it will be a turn 1 in terms of everybody will be wondering how it's going to all go down in each class. But speaking of how it's going to go down, this is how the grid will line up for our first racer today. Benjamin McCluskey takes pole position for today's sprint at Monza in the next-gen Racing Purple LMDH Gold class machine, joined by teammate Gaz Williams on the front row, separated by less than 400ths of a second come the end. Jamie Dorey for next-gen Racing Orange starts off our second row, joined by Craig Jones from SCCR Simsports, with then us coming on to the LMDH pair of Paul Williams, your LMDH Silver pole sitter, who is joined by the LMDH Gold driver of Team Slomo Black's Magna Yoram. The Speed9 Esports driver delivering a scintillating pole lap, and he has behind him on the full throw Mark Baker starting P7, his teammate, and they are followed up by Callum Jenkins, the privateer, starting at P8. Kevin Stringer starts P9 there in the LMDH class, the LMP2 class at SCCR Simsports. He takes the class's pole position, joined by Nigel Stock, the privateer, on the 5th row. And now on row number 6 is debutant David Maggioni, the Italian there, qualifying P3 in the LMP2 class, P11 overall, and he is joined by Mark Sykes from Next Gen Racing Orange on the 6th row of the grid. We carry down then to Barry Jarman, who takes the final slot in the LMP2 class there, P13, and on the 7th row of the grid for SCCR Simsports, before being followed up by Russell Fowler, who takes overall GT3 pole and also GT3 gold pole in P14 there for Performance Link Esports. Row number 8 goes to the pair of Eric Benson from Team Slomo and Gavin Garner for Next Gen Racing Pink, and they are followed up by the GT3 gold pair of Johan Ersson for Team Slomo and Racing Team Asher's Stefan Vessels. Then on our 10th row, we have Ollie Wayne, your silver pole sitter in the GT3 class for Next Gen Racing Purple, joined by Magnus Fullerton Bjerkeka, who starts P20 for Team Slomo Leftovers. And then on row number 11, starting P21, is your GT3 bronze pole sitter of Team Slomo Leftovers, Ingar Almklov, with a brilliant lap out-qualifying Paul Scott there, who starts P22 for Next Gen Racing Orange. Sean Scudder, the GT3 bronze driver, starts P23 on the 12th row for Racing Team Astra, joined by the GT3 silver driver of Ben Bennyworth. We will then come on to row at number 13, Daniel Stimman from Russell's Universal Robots, joined by Team Slomo Leftovers Espresso Ream. Jordan Bebois and Matthew Addy line up on row 14, with row 15 going to the pair of Elwyn Sykes and Racing Team Astra, and Fred Extensable Dre for Team Slomo. Then on row 16, Eric Svetsson for Team Slomo Black, joined by Ole Martin Mjort for Team Slomo, followed by Stefan Albanese for DRS Esport and the privateer Mark Arrowsmith, and there is Jorge Santos and Jack Barker, who line up on the final row of the grid, P35, P36. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, as we look back down to trackside now, it's only moments away from going racing. The pace car is ahead of our drivers currently, but as they make their way through the final corner, Benjamin McCluskey will look to back up the field, and indeed the pace car will pull off into the pit lane, and we'll wait for the Next Gen Racing Purple driver to take us to the green for our first 20 minutes of racing. But how is it all going to go down? Well, let's find out. He's left it as late as possible, and it's lights out and away we go for race 1 of today, and McCluskey bringing the field together and nails it on the start here as he comes down the inside. You can see Gaz Williams looking around the outside, but comparison as Jamie Dorey also hustles in together. They all break the wound down, and as they come roaring on down, we can also see the LMP2 class staying together before the GT3s make the wound through. We've had Stringer and Jarman come together as we've got a car off there. I believe that was Paul Scott getting it wrong, as we see Jarman in the background there, spins around, oh goodness me, and it's carnage at turn 2 there as Jarman in trying to return finds all the GT3s coming through, not all of them noticing in time, but as they made their way out, I think there's a lot to dissect with regards to that opening instant into the first 2 corners, as we see Daniel Stimman there returning to the circuit from the grass. But meanwhile, we look up to the front of what is here, the GT3 Gold Field, and we can see Gavin Garner trying to hold P2 versus what is there, Ollie Wayne behind, as meanwhile we see Ingar Almklov. We've got a car around us, Almklov in the middle of the road. Everybody tries to separate the C's here, and Almklov, we're not sure there's contact, but there's further contact of our drivers. Paul Scott being caught up, and it's all gone so very, very wrong in the opening 5 corners of the GT3 class as a whole, as Matthew Addy here battles up the inside of Jordan Baybar in the battle for overall position. They make the way down towards the first of the pair of Lesbos, in fact the second of the 2 Lesbos, as they head up towards the Scari. As they power the way on out and head on through. Meanwhile, we look back up to the LMDH class, the LMDH Gold in particular, and you see McCluskey, after nailing the start, is already breaking away. Meanwhile, Williams by comparison under pressure from Jamie Dorey, as Paul Williams by comparison, the Speed9 Esports LMDH Silver leader here, as Magna Yolan and Mark Baker close behind, as Yolan getting a good run out of the final corner, but Baker trying to sweep it all the way round as they make the way down once again. But in the long line they travel, and as they head up towards turn number 1 for the second time of asking, we look back to the LMP2 class and we see that Maggioni leading the class, and Nigel Stock and Mark Sykes with String and Jarman coming together, of course. An absolutely unexpected turn of events at the very start of the race, and the two teammates in that contact really costing one enough time, and we will get a replay of that in short order. But it's Maggioni who leads the LMP2 class ahead of Stock, who will look to capitalise on this as soon as possible. But meanwhile, into the pit lane comes Eric Benson, and I believe there's damage on the car as we see the number 74 car of what is, I do believe, Espresso Reno to take evasive action. Both drivers are really struggling their way into the pit lane, but as they make the way into the pits, meanwhile staying out on circuit, Jack Bark here battling with Jorge Santos and Svensson behind as they make the way down towards turn 1 once again. And Santos here looking to defend versus Svensson, but Svensson I think will have the overspeed under braking here as he looks up the inside on the left of your pitch, and the Team Slow-Mo Ferrari makes the move for P5 in the G3 bronze class and gets it done immediately as they head out to the first two corners once more. But as they power the way on through, and meanwhile we look from them to a little bit further up the road, in particular to Mark Sykes, who has Callum Jenkins going on around him here, and the NXTGEN Racing orange driver not putting up a fight, of course, in two different classes as they head on through. But meanwhile, speaking of fights being put up, we do look back to the GT3s, and we can see here the Team Slow-Mo trio of Woodies, Fluten Bierkircher behind, it's Denzel Dorey, and then Ayrton at the front of the trio as they make the way out of Lesmo 2 and down towards Ascari, but powering the way on out here, Bierkircher in the tow of his teammates, and the Ferrari, of course, known for that top speed as he makes his way on down. He'll gain gradually as he powers up towards Ascari, but not enough time in the day here to look for the move immediate. I think he's going to have to wait a little bit later and just look to try and outbrake his rivals into the next corner. But on his way on through, of course, patience will be key here. We do have 16.5 minutes of races still to go. It does feel as though those first 3.5 minutes have absolutely flown on by, but we have had a few instances early on in the race, and we will try to dissect those very shortly in terms of what happened, as we have got a couple of replays coming on up as I try to make the way on around. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, we can see that Jordan Bavois here, P2 in the GT3 bronze class, will right now trying to put the move on here versus Ole Martin Mjork for its overall GT3 position. Up the inside of the GT3 Gold driver he goes. Of course, Almklov just a little bit further up the road, 1.2 seconds clear is Almklov as they make the way out of Parabolica curve. Bavois on the inside there, he'll get the initial run, but he has to tuck back in, of course. He's not allowed to open up the corner as much as he would like to and carry more speed. And as they power their way down here, we'll look at the bow on the brakes here. He'll want to get the move done so that way he can make sure that Almklov doesn't break away. Mjork on the outside, Bavois on the inside on the left of your picture, and as they both bound the brakes, you can see Mjork, they're trying to out-brake Bavois in order to try and help his teammate break away, and it's a good defense of Mjork as he holds off Bavois once again. And I think Bavois, he'll know that there's a little bit of shenanigans going on with regards to the teammates. With regards to Mjork, they're defending hard to try and give Almklov all the space of day because they make the way through turn at number 3. Simple reason is that there's a team championship just as much as there's a driver's championship, and therefore they'll want to get as many points as possible within the team. But as they make the way in to Roger Bavois on the inside, and he gets it done immediately at this time round as he makes his way on through. But Mjork tries to come back, Bavois covers him off, but he doesn't cover him all the time, and Mjork once again up the inside here looking for the move into Lesmo 1. They're literally side by side as they come through the corner apex, head up towards the second Lesmo. Bavois going to try and go around the outside. This is going to get messy, but they somehow survive it. You never normally see too wide for Lesmo 2, but they've made it happen as they head on down the Ciro Clio straight, and you can see now Sean Scooter closed up behind them as we jump on board here with the Racing Team Astra BMW M4 driver, and he'll want a piece of this action for the simple reason he's P3 in the bronze class right now, and you can see P2 in the capable hands of Bavois ahead of him, and he'll want that place off, but Bavois finally gets it done, outpowering his rival down towards the Ascari, takes the move, and now Scooter will tuck it behind and think, right, I want to come on through as well. But as they power their way up towards Parabolica, I don't think it's going to be long here as the BMW shows its legs with the 6-cylinder 3-litre turbo engine, and as he makes his way onto the brakes here, up the inside he goes, and this is for overall position, but it's critical for Scooter as he wants to try and hunt down Bavois now as they come out to the final corner. Scooter gets it done, and as they make the way onto the next lap, I think the battle will calm down for a brief moment, but as they make the way up towards turn number 1 and once again, meanwhile looking further up the road at turn 1, see Johan Ayrton still ahead of Dorey and Bierkircher behind, but the three drivers here not changing places at the moment, all notes of damage on their cars respectively. But meanwhile we look up to the LMDH Gold class, and we can see here it's Gaz Williams who is being hounded by Jamie Dorey as they head down into the final corner. And keep in mind, we're already starting to see the multiclass aspect of the racing come to fruition here as we are getting the LMDHs started to lap the GT3s, and as Gaz Williams makes his way across the timeline, he'll know now that he needs to pick his fights and pick where he decides to make moves on the GT3 drives as Jamie Dorey stays ever close as they head down towards turn 1, but he can't find the move this time around. But meanwhile, of course, what happened at the start of the race, we do have a replay coming up. It is what happened between Kevin String and Barry Jarman at the start of the race into turn 1. So as they made their way down towards the opening corner, this is the LMP2 class. The Stringer battling initially with Maggioni, who got a brilliant start, and then under braking, Jarman there coming in quite hot, and the two teammates connecting. We do take a look back from Jarman's perspective as we look on board from the SCCR Supersport train. You can see Maggioni there really braking late into the corner, nailing it, and Jarman up the inside and in contact with his teammate, turned him across one another, and therefore the SCCR Supersports team right now will not be too happy. But then it all unfolded immediately after, as I think when the G3 pack came on through, well, Jarman tried to turn the car around and all the G3s found their way, but there was a little bit more than just that, because as we take a look back from the GT3 class start, we see Paul Scott already onto the grass at the start of the race. He slid his way on down, but meanwhile, looking to the field coming on through, well, there was, I do believe that was Ostensible Dorey going round, and he's had to pick the car back up. In fact, that was Johan Esler's way to understand it, and Vessel's there being given a bit of knock around. We saw Daniel Stimmen going a little bit wide there, and we're trying to understand what exactly happened in the GT3 class down into turn 1. As they made the way down, we look to the blimp camera here. You'll see Paul's got in a bit of contact there with one of the racing team Astra machines that sends him to the grass. And then as we see Jarman trying to turn it round, well, the G3s were 2 by 2 in this distant camera. And I think that explains what really happened with regards to the concertina effect. And then it got worse, of course, as our drivers made their way into turns 4 and 5 a little bit later. For as we continue to look at the live pictures briefly, we will get a replay of what happened at turns 4 and 5 very shortly. In fact, we have that replay now. And this is what happened to Ingar Almklov as he came down towards the Regina chicane in a 2-wide battle here with some of his teammates and Team Slimer onto the brakes. Went very hot on the brakes up the inside of Stefan Vessels. They went 3 wide for a brief moment. I think Almklov there just missed his braking point by about 7 to 10 metres, and that cost him dear. And the Team Slimer leftovers tried going round, and then everybody else coming into the scene of the incident, and well, a nasty one there. But let's take a look again of what happened from Jack Barker's perspective. He came into this incident a little bit later on, so he was really at the end of the scene of the incident. But as he came down to the brakes, of course, nobody really ahead of him immediately, and then on the brakes you could see that Almklov's gone round, and everybody having to be cautious here and just thread the needle round the stricken cars that are trying to navigate the hazard, and then they all got themselves back up to speed. So a bit of a messy start for the LMP2s and the GT3s. The LMDH is having a very clear start by comparison, and as soon as we return to our live pictures, we've got a car sliding off circuit. I believe that is Jamie Dorey to the wall there at the exit of Ascari. What on earth has happened to Dorey? He's missing a rear wing, and I think he's missing more than just a rear wing on that LMDH machine, so it's sliding all over the place right now. And the next generation Orange Drive trying to get the car home as he brings it back onto the circuit, but struggling in that car. I think has got more than one problem. I think there's a problem with the suspension, but meanwhile, as we look to drive, has got a problem in terms of holding on to overall position. This Magna Yolland here battling hard with Paul Williams. Paul Williams, your LMDH Silver leader, trying to break away from Mark Baker, his teammate from Speed 9 Esports, as the Team Slow-Mo Black LMDH Gold driver here, being passed on the inside by Paul Williams. Baker will now know he's got to try and repeat the same feat in order to continue to hunt down Williams as they head up towards turn number 4. With all the GT3s in front of them, as we're hearing that Jamie Dorey has been able to navigate his way into the pit lane very gradually in the end. We will try and understand what happened to Jamie Dorey very shortly, but meanwhile we're still half the race to go here. We'll stay with live pictures at the time being, as we can see the LMDH is all picking their way out the inside into the Regina chicane. This is going to get very tricky for our LMDH drivers, because of course they're expected to show the safer approach in terms of passing the slower class of car. The responsibility is on the faster class to make the overtake safely, and they're all having to look up the inside here into the very tight sections of corners before the long straight. And this is of course nasty on drive, because you really do have to have that faith of the other driver alongside you sees you there, and therefore you've got to go for it. But meanwhile, as our LMDH drivers find themselves being separated to a degree as things calm down, meanwhile we do look back to our GT3s, and here is Gavin Gardner, who right now only 4 tenths off of the lead GT3 Gold driver of Russell Fowler. It's a battle for the Gold class lead here, and the Next Gen Racing Pink drive continues to close on Fowler with the Bronzling Esports Mercedes pressing on as they make their way down towards turn number 1, and as they get ready to battle to the brakes once again. They've still got plenty of laps to go, but also of course Fowler will be wary of the fact that he does have the LMDH Gold class starting to pick its way closer and closer to the pair, and can he use that to his advantage to be able to eke out a little bit of breathing room as they make their way into the final 5 minutes of this race. Or as we look further back, Stefan Vessel's not too far behind, with Ollie Wayne between him and Gardner, and Ollie Wayne the leader in the GT3 Silver class. And then a bit further back off of him is Johan Esler, as we do see here the P4 GT3 Gold driver here as he makes his way up towards that turn at number 4. We're getting ready to battle onto the brakes, and as he heads on down here, well, we can see the slightly mangled rear wing on Ayrton's car, and we did talk about the fact that Ayrton being involved with a bit of that contact on the open lap of the G3 Gold class, and therefore picking up that damage as a result. But as he gets ready to break into Lesbo 1, he thinks you find in the balance of the car now, and not too worried about it as he heads up towards the second Lesbo here, and behind him he will have Extensible Dorey, but we just thinking about trying to stay as close as possible as we hear that Callum Jenkins is into the pit lane, and meanwhile Craig Jones picking his way past the two G3 Gold drivers as they head down the Circle Straight. But meanwhile, whilst all this is happening, Jack Barker continues to make some ground as meanwhile Elwin Sykes losing 2 overall places there to the G3 Silver and the G3 Gold driver Olin Martin Mjörk, and the G3 Bronze driver continues to fall back, and Elwin Sykes now under a bit of pressure, it would seem, from Eric Svensson as they make their way out to Lesbo 2 and down towards Ascari they go. And of course these two battling hard for position as we ride on board the gearbox here at the racing team Astra driver, and as he heads up towards the next braking zone. Now he'll know he'll be a little bit vulnerable by comparison as he heads onto the brakes, but not too vulnerable at this time. Meanwhile, speaking of vulnerabilities here, we look to the G3 Gold lead battle, and out on the left of your pitch is Gavin Gardner. On the right is Russell Fowler. Fowler ahead by a nose currently as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Gardner's going to have the inside line here as they head on to the anchors, but as they come through, 2 wide they go in. Will it be 2 wide they exit, or will it be 1 wide? Well, Fowler there on the outside to inside line. Meanwhile, Gardner holding at the inside to outside. They give one other plenty of space. Craig Jones goes all the way around the outside to make it 3 wide into turn 3, but Fowler here on the outside now starting to lose a little bit of leverage as the Ferrari opens up the tanks, and as they make their way down towards turn number 4, well, Fowler's going to stay on the inside. He'll battle hard on the brake, and we know that they're rather equal on the brakes, these two machines, but Fowler there coming off Gardner, coming off of 4 and into 5, and he holds on to lead the G3 Gold class for a little bit longer as they make their way into the Lesbos. And coming through Lesbo 1, you can see already how Ollie Wayne now getting a bit close here, letting Magna Yonlund go, and will Wayne, your G3 Silver leader, he doesn't need to really push this any further with Vessels just behind. I wonder if Wayne right now might be thinking about letting Vessels go and just focusing on leading his class, because he has got a whole magnitude of GT3 Gold drivers between himself and the next GT3 Silver driver, Matthew Addy. In fact, we can see it there immediately. He lets Vessels take a look at the back of the car and lets him through, and as they make the way into Ascari, well, now Vessels have the opportunity to go hunting after the top 2, but will he be able to pull it off? As meanwhile, Ingot Almclov here, we can see chasing on after what is Paul Scott. Looking up the inside of the GT3 Silver driver is the GT3 Bronze leader, and Jordan Babewell 5.5 seconds back currently, but with that look at a move, Almclov's going to lose a lot of time there into Ascari, and Babewell may just be coming back at the race later on here as he makes his way out to Ascari and down towards Parabolica Curve, but still there is time remaining in this race, plenty of time. 5.5 minutes will feel like a lifetime to some, and as we do see Vessels right now being chased by Ollie Wayne, but I don't think Wayne's going to try and put the move on. We do look to Gardner making his way down towards turn 1, and this time not able to get alongside versus Fowler as they head into the opening chicane. I think Gardner just trying to pace himself now, get himself set up for the next opportunity. They're heading on out of turns 1 and 2 and down towards turn at 3 they go. Flat out they'll make their way. Meanwhile, in the LMDH and the LMP2 classes, we can tell you in the LMP2 class the battle is on between Nigel Stock there and Jamie Dorey, albeit Jamie Dorey will come through rather quickly as he makes his way around the outside of Stock. But in terms of the battle for the lead of the LP2 class, well, David Maggioni has completely broken away by 12.5 seconds as they head across the timeline, and Maggioni absolutely flying off into the distance currently as Stock here, I think, having to settle for P2, excluding any last minute instance. Of course, anything can happen until they reach that checkered flag, but meanwhile Mark Sykes in P3, and we're celebrating his birthday today. Of course, I believe it's his 48th birthday, the next generation orange driver in the 666 machine, fighting on here, of course, still nursing a degree of injury, but holding on to a P3 and resilient as they come as he makes his way up towards a turn at 4 and 5. But as he comes on down, meanwhile, we talked about late drama, and here it is as Matthew Addy has gone round at Lesbo 2, and it's dropped him out of what was at the time P2 in the GT3 Silver class. He spins the car round, but what exactly caused the incident? We made his way out to Lesbo 1 and up towards Lesbo 2, where you can see Stefan Vessels just behind this time, but too far away to get involved. And as he came for Lesbo 2, the rear just stepping out as he tried to turn it a little bit beyond what the rear tyres would allow him, and the Briton just finding the car coming loose under rotation. and well, a difficult one there for the 57 Porsche driver, as meanwhile we return to the live pictures, and now Stefan Albanese up to P2 in the GT3 Silver class, Paul Scott up into P3 as Eddie picks up the pieces in P4. But as our drivers make the way on down the final straight here, we can see a little bit of bob and weave and a flash of lights from one of the Racing Team Astra BMWs behind. But meanwhile, we look to Johan Ersson, P4 in the GT3 Gold class. He still does have behind him Fredrik Stensvold Dorey, as we can see here the Team Slow-Mo driver from Norway of Ersson just keeping Dorey at bay as he makes his way up the gearbox once again towards turn number 4. The battle between Fowler and Gardner has stabilised at around 4 tenths. Vessels versus Wayne stabilised at 4 tenths. Vessels being allowed to push on, but as our drivers completely make the way up towards turn number 4 in full haste now, you can imagine with time wearing on down, the moves will become ever more critical. But the drivers are getting ready to attack the next set of corners. What we do see there in the YouTube chat, Bazman Black, that's Baz Meacham of the YouTube chat. We say hello to said, hope everyone has a good race tonight. Gutted I can't be involved, but sadly my season is over. And shame, I was expecting low 47s here in practice the other day, and we're sorry to hear that, Baz, but you'd be absolutely flying in the BMW M4, and well, hopefully we can see at the end of this season, but it sounds as though there may be some technical issues for yourself, which if so, we're going to be missing a star on circuit, a silver star in terms of being in that G3 Silver class. We do hope to see you return sooner rather than later. But meanwhile, speaking of returning to action sooner rather than later, we can see Russell Fowler here, the Force League Esports leader in the G3 Gold class, having to fend off Gavin Gardner once again. And as they make their way down towards turn number 11, well, they'll come through the right hander. They'll have one more lap as they come on around. But you can see Gardner there looking for the cutback and corner exit, and now starting to get the power down. But that Mercedes absolutely feral with its speed as it heads down towards turn number 1, staying right to the inside here, cutting across the white lines. They are permitted to do this, of course, but they've got to be wary of the fact that it's not as wide as they make their way past the pit lane exit. Gardner there looking on the outside. Fowler covers him off. He's not quite close enough to go for the move. And as they make their way through turns 1, 2, through Retavilio they go. And Fowler there sliding a little bit of corner exit. The oversteer of the car catch him out as he powers his way on through. And Gardner this time might just have the opportunity he so craves, as he gets almost fully ahead here as they come through turn 3. It's Gardner who now leads the GT3 Gold class, but he's still got Fowler there keeping his nose on the inside, and Fowler's going to do everything here to send it on the inside as they make the way into the left into right combination. Regina, there's contact between the two. Gardner's over the curve, Fowler goes on round, and Gardner now with some suspension damage is going to upset the apple cart as we see Fowler there parked in the rear of the picture and going racing once again. Stefan Vessels moves up to P2 in the GT3 Gold class here, and now Gardner's just got to get to the end of this lap, we would presume, albeit he may in fact have one more lap to go, given the race leader overall. That's Benjamin McCluskey, has just crossed the timeline. So back for Gardner, there's going to be one more lap after this. And as he got damage to the car, there's going to bring Vessels into contention right to the end. Meanwhile, Johan Ersson now will be fighting for more. It's not just going to be battling for P4. He's going to be battling for a spot on the podium here in P3 in the GT3 Gold class, and he'll be wary of the fact now the Team Slow-Mo driver, well, he's got the pressure of his teammates behind, and Fredrik Stensvold Dorey is showing no signs of abating in that, leveraging that pressure on him as they make their way up towards the final quarter once more. But you can see now it's all coming to contention as meanwhile Russell Fowler really struggling, and I think the damage he's picked up for that contact with Gardner, and I think it'll be one for the Shoulds to take a look at, very close between the two of them. But as they make the way down the back straight, Fowler continues to go backwards here afterwards, looking to be a really strong run to at least a podium finish. But as he heads on through, will mean while we do look to a little bit further in the rear of the picture, and we do see it very Jarman, the SCCR Simsports driver, making his way on and through and up towards turn number 11. But meanwhile, we see Benjamin McCluskey there as well, and behind him is Gaz Williams, the Next Gen Racing purple player, battling for the win of this race into the final corner as they come onto the brakes. McCluskey covers on the inside here. Williams will look for the cutback and corner exit. The checker flag will wait them as they come on around. I think McCluskey's done enough here unless he runs out of hybrid right at the end, and the checker flag waves, and it's Benjamin McCluskey who takes the win in the sprint in the LMDH Gold class and overall ahead of Gaz Williams by 1.5 tenths. Craig Jones will come home to a valiant P3 for SCCR Simsports there, and it will shortly be Paul Williams who crosses the line, your LMDH Silver winner by 5 seconds over Mark Baker. You can see in the rear of the picture Magna Yolland between the two of them as Baker cross the line P2 in the LMDH Silver class, P6 overall, and then shortly Jamie Dorey will come on around to take what will be P5 in the LMDH Gold class. Meanwhile, whilst Dorey's making his way to the timeline, we've still got battling ongoing And we can see here Gavin Gardner holding on to the GT3 Gold lead for the time being. He's got an advantage of what is 8 tenths over Stefan Vessels. I think he'll feel he's safe so as he hooks up these corners. But as he comes on through here, gets it absolutely nailed. But meanwhile, speaking of the driver who's nailed it in this race, he comes on through the final corner. And on his first race of the season, he's going to take a class win. It's the LMP2 driver, David Maggioni, on home soil, who comes out of the final corner in the privateer machine to win the LMP2 race as he crosses the line 16.1 seconds clear of Nigel Stock. And then it will be Gavin Gardner who comes on through to take the win in the GT3 Gold class for Next Gen Racing Pig in a close battle to Russell Fowler and Stefan Vessels. And behind Ollie Waynes there will cross the line your winner in the GT3 Silver class behind the runner-up of the GT3 Gold class, Stefan Vessels. Johan Ersson completes the GT3 Gold podium, and we can see Stefan Albanese P2 in the GT3 Silver class ahead of Paul Scott, and it will be Ingar Almklov who, despite all the pressure, takes the win in the GT3 Bronze class, and a stellar driver, the Team Simon leftovers driver, 5.7 seconds clear of Jordan Baybois, who finishes P2 in class, and it'll be Matthew just behind his P4 in the GT3 Silver class with some time. Well, the next drivers come on through, but what an absolute thriller to start off today's racing here as our drivers have made their way on around in anger for 20 minutes. And I can tell you one thing, those 20 minutes have gone incredibly quickly. That goes to show you how intense these sprint races are. And as our drivers make their way into the pit lane, everybody has crossed the line. And McCluskey, I think, will be absolutely pleased as punch that he nailed this race. A brilliant start. And in the end, despite being closed back up to Gaz Williams due to traffic towards the end, McCluskey fought this to a T in the sprint race, and he'll be looking to try and make it 2 out of 2 in the feature of today. But David Maggioni, well, right now, if anybody was wondering whether he would make himself a star here in Italy, he definitely has taken the win in his debut in the sprint, and the question will be, can he make it 2 out of 2 in the feature? Of course, things did go his way a little bit, you could argue, with what was Stringer and Jarman taking one over out of contention at the start of the race, but still anything can happen at Monza, and Maggioni knows that for certain now, as the magic of Monza has definitely shone for him as he comes into the pit lane. And let's take you through those race results subject to any steward's inquiries. Well, as we do look to our overall results firstly, of course, we start off with the overall, breaking down where our podium drivers have finished in each of the classes and the top 10 before coming on to the class-specific results. We can see for the sprint in round 8 of the Next Gen Racing Proto GT3 Championship, Season 2, as brought to you today at the Autodromo Nacional di Monza. Benjamin McCluskey taking at the overall and the LMDH Gold, winning the end by 1.5 seconds for Next Gen Racing Purple over his teammate Gaz Williams. Nothing between the two of them at the finish line. Craig Jones fighting to a third place finish there for SCCR Sports, and another deserved podium ahead of Paul Williams, your LMDH Silver winner for Speed 9 Esports, being cheered on there by Jochen Seeger in the YouTube chat. Also, Joe winner 1408. Good evening to you, Jochen. And then we can see Magna Yolan for Team Slomo Blackfish in P5, ahead of runner-up in the LMDH Silver class of Mark Baker for Speed 9 Esports, and then Jamie Dorey P7 there for Next Gen Racing Orange. David Maggioni, your winner in the LMP2 class, P8 overall finisher, ahead of fellow privateer Nigel Stock, who became the runner-up in the LMP2 class after trying to stay close to Maggioni in the early stages, falling off as the race went on. And then Kevin Stringer rounding off the LMP2 podium and the top 10 there for SCCR Sim Sports. Mark Sykes, best of the rest finisher, P11 for Next Gen Racing Orange, ahead of Callum Jenkins, who rounded off the LMDH Silver podium, P12, the privateer. A lap down, technically, based in terms of how the laps finished. And then Gavin Gardner in P13, your GT3 Gold winner and your overall GT3 winner for Next Gen Racing Pink. Just ahead of Ollie Wayne, your GT3 Silver winner, as we do see there, Stefan Vessels being removed from our listing. I'm not quite sure about that. I do believe that Vessels did finish ahead of Ollie Wayne, and that's the way we're going to treat it until confirmation. But Vessels be runner-up in the GT3 Gold class, but not listed on our tower. And we can see Johan Ersson, meanwhile, in what will be P16 effectively, the third place finisher in the GT3 Gold class. Stefan Albanese listed P18, but P19 in fact, your runner-up in the GT3 Silver class, ahead of what was Paul Scott there to round off the overall top 20 for Next Gen Racing Orange, behind the DRS Esport driver, and finishing third in the GT3 Silver class. And then Ingar Almklov there, what will be effectively P21, taking the win in the GT3 Bronze class, the Team Slower leftovers driver, ahead of Jordan Baybois, the Frenchman there, not quite able to match the pace of Almklov, but still another second place. It's all he needs to keep himself well in the hunt for that championship crown. Matthew Addy just behind them, and then we do have to go a few places to Elwin Sykes in what is effectively P28 there for Racing Team Astra, who rounds off the podium in the GT3 bronze class. But as we continue to look down, of course, it didn't go all the way for certain drivers in terms of their race. We can see the two retirees of Sean Scooter, P35 for Racing Team Astra, and Daniel Stillman there for Rossum Universal Robots, retiring only what was in the end 2 laps into the race, finishing at P36. A difficult race for a couple of drivers, but most of the drivers making it to the very end. And as we now come on to the individual classes, starting with the LMDH Gold class, we can see here in the LMDH Gold class, Benjamin McCluskey taking the win in class by only 1.5 tenths for Next Gen Racing Purple over his teammate Gaz Williams, with Craig Jones there a further, what was almost 8 seconds behind in P3 for SCCR Simsports. Magnion P4 for Team Slow-Mo Black, ahead of Jamie Dorey of a difficult race after that instant coming out of Ascari, setting him to the back of the pack, and in the end he brought the car home in P5 to line up in the reverse grid pole for the feature. When then comes the LMDH Silver class, and we can see here Paul Williams taking the win for Speed9 Esports ahead of teammate Mark Baker by 5 seconds, with Callum Jenkins finishing a lap down in the end due to a late instant. The privateer there still fighting on to the finish. And then we come to the LMP2 class, and we can see here in the other Proto class, David Maggioni taking the win there by 16.3 seconds ahead of Nigel Stock, with the SCCR Simsports driver Kevin Stringer round off the podium there a further 16 seconds behind. Mark Sykes P4 for Next Gen Racing Orange, finishing on the lead lap ahead of Barry Jarman, who finished 2 laps down for SCCR Simsports but still finished the race and therefore will line up on reverse grid pole. And then we do come on to the GT3 classes, starting with the GT3 Gold class, with Gavin Garner taking the win there for Next Gen Racing Pig. We're not quite sure why Stefan Vessels has been demoted. The only thing we can perhaps say, perhaps there's a penalty, a drive-through penalty that's been applied post-race due to penalty points being picked up, but we do believe that Vessels crossed the line at P2 in the GT3 Gold class, and we'll need confirmation of that after today's racing as to what's happened there. But Johan Ersson would be the third place finisher on the GT3 Gold podium if Vessels' result does stand for Team Slow-Mo. Fredrik Stensvold just behind, ahead of Magnus Flutenbjerg, with the two teammates battling hard to the finish, and Olin Martin Muir then in what is effectively P6 for Team Slow-Mo, quite a way off the pace in the end with the early instant, and what was Russell Fowler losing out right at the finish there in the penultimate lap battle with Gavin Garner going wrong at the Regia chicane, and Eric Benson finishing on lap down in P8 for Team Slow-Mo. We then come to the GT3 Silver class, and we can see here Ollie Wayne taking the win by 13.2 seconds for Next Gen Racing Purple over DRS Esports Stefan Albanese, with Paul Scott a further second behind for Next Gen Racing Orange, and then Matthew Addy P4 the privateer. The 4 drivers finishing on the lead lap in their class, with Espresso Rien a lap down there for Team Slow-Mo leftovers, the same for Ben Bennyworth, Jack Barker for Made Racing, and Mark Arrowsmith there. And then we come on to the G3 Bronze class, and we can see in the last of our classes, Ingot Almclough taking the win for Team Slow-Mo leftovers by 5.7 seconds over privateer Jordan Bebois, with Elwin Sykes finishing P3, a lap down effectively for Racing Team Astra. And then Eric Svetsson for Team Slow-Mo Black ahead of Jorge Santos to complete the top 5, with Sean Scooter and Daniel Stillman both retiring from the race, respectively. What was 4 laps in and 2 laps into the race, but still we look forward to seeing them back on track for the feature. But those are the results from our first race of today, ladies and gentlemen, and don't go anywhere. We'll be back in approximately 5 to 6 minutes time for the build up to our second race of today, and that is the 60-minute feature, of course. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss an absolute thriller here at Monza. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to our second race of today. That's the 60-minute feature that's due to get underway in approximately 4.5 minutes' time. Does mean we're running a couple of minutes behind schedule, but hopefully you will forgive us. And indeed, I look forward to fantastic racing that lies in wait. But as our drivers get ready to go racing at once again, indeed, we had quite the sprint race, no question about it, with regards to our drivers battling hard and fast from the opening lap and the opening corner to the very last turn. But it all came down to fine margins, apart from some who were able to break away from the pack, including Speed9 Esports' Paul Williams, who brought home another win in the LMDH Silver class. Now, whilst we have been in between the race sessions, we have had confirmation from Stefan Vessels, who we say hello to in the YouTube chat, that he had picked up a number of 4x incidents over the course of the race due to contact with other drivers who had lost control of their cars, and therefore, due to number of incidents accrued and with that 15 instant count limit, he did pick up a penalty which was served post-race, and Vessels' finishing position was therefore correct on the actual tower charts in terms that took into account the time penalty that he had been given, as he was not able to serve a drive-through penalty come the end of the race. So very unfortunate for Vessels, but it does mean he's lost out quite considerably, but of course he will gain in the fact that he will start further up the grid for the purposes of the feature race with the reverse class order grid process, and having been qualified to finish the race. So it does mean there's a little bit of a bright side to it, because not the way that Vessels would have wanted it to go, and as we do see Ollie Waynes there happy with the performance and saying it felt perfectly for him after start. Your GT3 Silver winner, of course, in our first race of today, which has been a difficult one for some, and Matthew Addy will be one of a number of drivers who I think will be kicking himself slightly with regards to what could have been a guaranteed podium, and it was one mistake out of Lesbo 2 which saw the rear of the car go on around, and what of his own volition cost himself dearly in terms of being able to bring home that podium. But still, we'll have another shot at it very shortly, as we are only 2.5 minutes away from heading to the grid for our second race of today. And as Vessels crosses the timeline and parks up, we'll be heading back to the pit lane very shortly, and Vessels will know that he can definitely now look to bring home a potential win here in the GT3 Gold class in the feature. And of course, another driver who feels as though he missed a key opportunity, Russell Fowler, who you can see they're parked in the pit lane currently, and the Fornsling Esports driver. Already, from what I gathered down in the paddock, in a little bit of a conversation with Gavin God, they're both trying to understand whether they gave one enough room into the reduced chicane. And in retrospect, I think they gave one other enough room. I think it was close racing, and well, they, in fact, how close they raced led to that contact, and Fowler in the end coming off the worst of the pair. But of course, it does go to the stewards. That's the role of the stewards. I'm just your commentator at the end of the day, but it was hard and fast race. I think both of them will put it aside, and they'll look forward to going racing once again very shortly here, as they do have a 60-minute feature race to contend with and still plenty of points to play for. But as both drivers get themselves set, we also do look to Ollie Wayne, the GT3 Silver winner, a resounding winner for NXTGEN Racing Purple in the first race, and will now, can he make it 2 out of 2? He wanted to pick his way through the GT3 Silver class, starting at the back of it, and well, he can make overtakes. We've seen plenty of overtaking opportunities and brilliant battling here, but with the 60 minutes available, plus also the strategy, well, there's going to be a big consideration of fuel, given that fuel saving is going to be critical, but with the reduction in the slipstream potential behind another car that we've seen, and indeed it's really being felt here, one would imagine now the ability to fuel save has been further constricted, and in short shifting may be potent, but it's only going to be useful when you're running extremely close behind another driver, or if you're making your way between the two Lesbo corners. That's where you may be able to do some short shifting, but otherwise it may be pedal to the metal and a bit of lift and coasting, and that may be all the fuel that can be saved. But it's not just about our GT3s, as we see Magna Yolland making his way up towards the reduced chicane here, getting himself set as he breaks his wound down, and well, the number 77 driver having a clean and consistent opening race of the day, and he'll be looking to try and push the tempo just a little bit further as he makes his way into the 60-minute race and see what he can pick up as the time presses on. But indeed, now only 30 seconds away from going racing once more. It's all to play for here. We saw a lot of drama in the opening 5 quarters of race number 1, and we're hoping not to see the same. But again, this is Monza. Anything can happen on the opening lap, and will anybody be able to potentially capitalise on any drama or madness and find themselves unexpectedly in the lead, alternatively gaining multiple positions in short order? We're going to find out all that and more very shortly, ladies and gentlemen, as the checker flag is about to come out on this final practice warm-up session, and we'll go to the grid in less than 2 minutes. As all of our drivers get themselves set here, of course, they'll now want to try and mentally reset as best as they can, as now they are all taken to the pit lane, and they'll be back on the grid, and let's take you through how they line up for race number 2 of 2. So for our second race of today, we can see there's been a little bit of a mix-up with regards to the grid order, it would seem. I'm not sure what's happened here. We will try to find out very shortly for you. But I think there has been a slight complication with regards to how the grid has been set, because we can't currently see a grid being set at all. And in fact, if you give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. are back, ladies and gentlemen, and apologies, it seems though there was some sort of technical issue with us being able to see the gridding process for the race server, but as we have returned now, we are back racing once again, and the drivers make the way on around here. Well, we are just under 5 minutes into this race so far, so we have missed the start, but you'll have to forgive us here as the race in action presses on. Our drivers charge their way down towards turn number 1. It looks so Jamie Dorey leading at the moment in the LMDH Gold class, ahead of Craig Jones, Magna Yolland, and Benjamin McCluskey behind. Meanwhile, in the LMDH Silver class, it's Paul Williams with already a 34-second advantage over Mark Baker, with what is Cam Jenkins not able to make it back into the race. We are hearing that Gaz Williams experienced a similar technical issue and therefore retired the car before getting underway. And we can see Kevin Stringer, meanwhile, in the LMP2 class, leading at 4.6 seconds clear of Mark Sykes, with David Maggioni in P3 and Nigel Stock and Barry Jarman not able to make it onto the grid. Again, technical issues for them, albeit I think for Nigel Stock a lap may have been turned. In fact, Nigel Stock out of the circuit here and looking to try and catch up. So it's been some sort of instant for Nigel Stock, but Barry Jarman not able to make it on to the grid. Meanwhile, in what is the G3 Gold class, as we look to our GT3s, overall G3 leader and Gold class leader is Eric Benson for Team Slow-Mo, as he makes his way through the opening corners, comes rolling on through ahead of Ole Martin York. And then we do have Stefan Vessels at P3 in the Gold class, with Russell Fowler just behind him, Fred Extensible Dorey completing the G3 Gold top 5. Meanwhile, in the GT3 Silver class, we can see it's Mark Arrowsmith who leads the class currently in the privateer Audi, running, of course, the team at WRT at Valentino Rossi inspired colours in the 46. As he makes his way on around here, he does have a close company behind him, the former Magnus Fullerton Bjerkirka in the GT3 Gold class, and Gavin Gardner. You've got to go some way back to Ollie Wayne, who's P2 in the class currently, and made a lot of ground on the opening laps. And then Ben Bennyworth, who should ahead of Jack Barker and Matthew Addy, not too far off the hunt inside the top 5. Meanwhile, in the G3 Bronze class, we do have Jordan Babois, who right now keeping up Paul Scott at bay as the privateer makes his way through Lesmo 1, and will the number 64 driver carrying on the momentum which he carried through in the first race of the day, and looking to try and now make it a win rather than the second place finish. He's got Jorge Santos a bit further back, and Santos having a good start to this race and started from towards the front, but to be fair, he's held on to it. Eric Svensson behind Sean Scott and Elton Science quite a way back, with Ingar Almklov at the back of the GT3 Bronze class. As we give you the update on all the classes here, and again we do apologise for missing the start of the race due to technical difficulties. Seems the iRacing lobby and not wanting to work for some drivers. Indeed, our commentary perspective today, we do see Santos spending off their Svensson as they come out of 10 up towards 11. We say hello to K-Teams in the Facebook chat. How you doing? Well, Katie. But as Santos here gets the run down towards turn number 11, Svensson looking up the inside, getting a stronger run off the corner in the Ferrari onto the brakes. He goes to Team Slow-Mo Black, and it's going to be a classic move into Parabonica Curve. And now Santos will look to try and come back. I think Svensson absolutely nailing it under braking. As meanwhile, we look back up to the GT3 Gold drivers here, and Gavin Garner trying to go around the outside of the GT3 Silver leader of Aerosmith as they turn into quarter apex here, and will Garner being made to work hard for this. And Aerosmith, I think, in fighting this hard is only really compounding what the woes that will be coming his way. If Ollie Wayne is able to pick his way through, but still Aerosmith's going to battle this as they make the way through turn number 3 towards the Regia chicane they go. 2 wide all the way through. Here's the battle of the Audi on the left versus the Ferrari on the right, and as they make their way into the braking zone here, Gardner on the inside, he'll have the advantage, and we see you can go too wide through here, but you've got to be brave, you've got to be bold, and they make it through. They're still too wide up towards Lesmo 1, but now this is where we'll see Aerosmith fend on the inside, as Gardner's now got the unenviable task of trying to go all the way around the outside, but going deep there. You can see now how Fullerton Bjerkirka looking up the inside in return, as Wayne looks at the move on Johan Ersson as they come through Lesmo 2, and meanwhile Ben Bennyworth trying to get into the fire as they power the way down, and Gardner trying to pounce again as they make the way down the Cerro Claro straight at the front of this group, and Gardner really now wanting to make the ground, because every second they spend in this battle, of course, he's losing time to the top 5 in the GT3 Gold class, and Gardner going outside to outside for Ascari, and he gets it done there on the apex of turn number 9 as they power the way on through, and a brilliant piece of battling there between Aerosmith and Gardner, both of them actually going for him in the end. Gardner finally finding the way through. Meanwhile, as they head on down You can see a bit of serpentine in the rear of the picture, but meanwhile focusing on the front of the picture, we can see it floating Biakeka up the inside once again, this time fending off Wayne, but at the same time trying to make the move on Aerosmith. And as the Ferrari driver here holds the inside line coming out of Parabolica curve, heading on down towards turn number 1, on the brakes they will roar very shortly, but first it's full throttle charge, and as they head down towards turn number 1, they make their way onto what is another lap now, onto lap number 6 they turn. They've got the LMDH starting to close up behind you, can see in the rear of the picture, but Biakeka on the inside here, and Aerosmith finding himself under pressure with Wayne as well, also in the mix just behind, but Aerosmith defending as they come through turn number 2. There's contact between the two, and Wayne does the take evasive action at the last minute, but can't find his way through and has to back off, and Ben Bennyworth now picks up the pieces where Wayne loses out and moves into P2 in the G3 Silver class as they come through the Curva Grande, and up towards turn 4 they go, and Bennyworth here will be grateful for the fact he's been able to make the headway on Wayne, and now we're looking for the move on Aerosmith, as Aerosmith in return looking for the return move on Biakeka as they come into the braking zone, and Wayne there goes a little bit deep, but as they come out Biakeka goes wide, and as a result Bennyworth will pick up another overall place here as he holds it to P2 in the G3 Silver class, and things start to settle down for a brief moment as they make their way up towards Lesmo 2. But meanwhile, a bit further back, we ride on board here with Sean Scooter, looking up the inside of Jorge Santos into Lesmo 1. Santos defend on the outside, that goes deep, won't get the throttle out of the corner, and Scooter here too wide as they head into Lesmo 2. Gets it done there as he moves up to P3 in the G3 Bronze class, and now his next target will be Eric Svensson if he's able to break away from Santos. But meanwhile, as he heads up to power, and we are hearing that Gaz Williams has recently rejoined the racing as well, so a lot of our drivers being impacted heavily with the technical issues at the start. We do look to Jack Barker here, who has the pressure of Matthew Addy building behind the made for a racing driver here, trying to hold on to P4 in the G3 Silver class, and you can see here with the LMDH class machines all trying to pick their way through the GT3s. 11 minutes in, it does start to get very tricky as they make the way on through, but everybody's seemingly steering clear of one another, no major instance here, and as they come out, Mark Aerosmith into the pit lane. Well, Aerosmith decided to come in early there, and I wonder if by doing so, he's trying to take himself out of the strategy early and go for the ultimate undercut. We'll have to wait and see, but Barker here continues to keep Addy at bay, the Audi just having enough power on the legs, but as they head into the braking zone, well, Barker goes very hot on the brakes, he goes a bit deep, but he gets it stopped in time. Addy trying to go inside to outside here, as they make the way out, Addy putting two wheels onto the gravel, Paul Scott tucking in behind, as they power their way up towards turn number 4. Right on board the gearbox here of the made for racing driver, P3 in class at this point, with Aerosmith into the pit lane. Nigel Stock goes round there, and as they head up towards turn number 4, well, Addy looks up the inside, can't find it, can't beat Barker on the brakes, and Barker, say what you will, he's not had the best luck over the course of the season, but gets it a little bit wrong there as he connects the two apexes together, goes deep, and Paul Scott here is also going to try and come on through on the inside to make it 2 passes for a single corner, but as they go 2 wide out, Barker giving a little bit tap there to the gravel and into the wall, and well, I think Barker they'll be absolutely fuming with Scott coming on through. He had nowhere to go, he'll argue, and I think I can see reason in that, and Paul Scott gaining the place of Espresso Rien as well, but it's just not been Barker's day in the speed race as Espresso Rien moves into P5 in the class and now makes his way down Seraglio as he heads up towards turn number 9. Well, right now the driver carrying on his momentum through turn 8, and he'll be looking to try and get as close as possible. Paul Scott is 3 seconds up the road, but as he heads on through here, we do look a little bit further back up to Ben Bennyworth here, who haven't picked his way into lead of the G3 Silver class, with Aerosmith coming into the pits early, but Aerosmith taking his scheduled stop, his one and only expected stop. I think we are going to see a bit of strategic variety here over the course of the hour, and Bennyworth right now with Biakeka behind, and then Ollie Wayne. I think he'll be grateful for the breathing room for a brief time, but he'll be conscious of the fact that if Biakeka gets alongside, he's going to be losing that advantage. Meanwhile, we look back here to Ingar Alclov, now picks his way out the inside of Barker, and Barker will likely be into the pits near this lap, and Alclov, the Team Slower leftovers driver, looking to try and gradually make his way towards the podium here in the G3 Bronze class, but his next target, Jorge Santos, is 8 seconds up the road as Barker tucks in behind and just carries on here, and I think Barker trying to go to his pit strategy, but meanwhile as they make the way down, things have calmed down in the LMDH as we focus still on the G3s, and Bennyworth having been passed by Biakeka in the run for turns 1 and 2, has got Ollie Wayne up his inside as they head underneath the gantry. Wayne down the right of your picture, he makes the move under braking into Regia, and it is now Ollie Wayne who retakes the lead of the G3 Silver class here just before the 15-minute mark, and therefore he'll try and break away. He'll want to make it 2 out of 2 in terms of wins today to keep his championship hopes very much alive as he makes his way into Lesbo 2, and behind Bennyworth tucking in, and Johan Ayres not too far off here. And I think for Bennyworth it's all about playing the long game here, and how can he pick his way into this battle? Can he find a way to make it work on strategy, as Gaz Williams there tries to pick one side then the other, and Williams almost coming a cropper there with the run to the barriers, being very tight indeed down Cerro Clear, as meanwhile Paul's got Matthew Addy exchange places with Matthew Addy on the inside, and Paul's got going around the outside. I think the two of them trying to steer clear of one another as the privateer tucks in behind the next gen racing driver, and they make the way up towards turn at number 11 as they power the way on down. Meanwhile, in the LMDH Gold class, we look to your overall and your gold leader, Jamie Dorey, 1.5 seconds clear of Craig Jones. You can see Jones there just behind the next gen racing orange driver in the SCCR Supersports machine, but the 88 driver here continuing to charge on as he heads up towards turn at number 4, with McCluskey only 8/10 off, and all three of these drivers right now really trying to push the envelope with regards to the pace that's available to them as they make the way out to turns 4 or 5. But we are hearing meanwhile that Sean Scudder's been involved in an incident. Mark Baker's been involved in a separate incident a little bit earlier, and it does sound like a couple of drivers getting it wrong here in the early stages of the race. But as Jones makes his way into turn number 7, hooked up very nicely, McCluskey taking a 10th out of him over the course of a year into Lesbos, and he'll be looking to try and take more of that down as this lap comes towards its conclusion. But meanwhile, we look from them to Stefan Vessels, and Vessels here getting closer to the back of Ole Martin Mjork as he tries to hunt down P2 in the GT3 Gold class, and has been right on board with the racing team Astro driver from South Africa. Well, 3/10 is the gap here as he makes his way up the gearbox. You can see how that toe gain is absolutely negligible now as they make the way up towards Ascari. He's gained in a couple hundreds here, but it's going to be nowhere near enough to be able to make a move as he's got Nigel Stock in his inside, and Stock here picks the inside line. I think York's having to take it very carefully, and meanwhile Stock also being cautious. They make the way now. Both drivers there exercising caution, and therefore the race is neutralised between Vessels and Mjork as they make the way up towards turn at number 11. But Vessels will know that with Gaz Williams also at the inside, well, Williams will clear the pair just before they get under braking, but Vessels a little bit late on the brakes, then to Parabolica curve, gets a better line through. Mjork a little bit disturbed up by Williams on the inside, and as they make the way out, well, Vessels now within 2/10 here, and he'll be well of an attacking distance, and they make the way down towards turn at number 1. Gaining little by little here in the toe. He'll gain a 10th by the time they get into the braking zone. And he's going to brave. Here's Ole Martin Mjork. Does he defend? No, he does not. Vessels looks up the inside. Hot on the brakes he goes. It's too wide into the apex. And as they come on through, well, Mjork there being squeezed a little bit, but I think in the end Vessels getting it done quite nicely and moves into P2 for Racing Team Astra in the GT3 Gold class, as Russell Fowler only sits 1.5 seconds back, and Vessels there with a hard but firm move gets it done for P2 as his next target, Eric Benson, the class leader, sits 5.7 seconds up the road. But meanwhile, we look to David Maggioni here, P3 in the LMP2 class, and looks to be trying to chase down Mark Sykes for a 1.5 second gap between himself and Sykes, and Mark Baker in between the two of them, the LMDH Silver driver in between them right now, trying to recover the race that he's lost out on. But as we talk about that, Kevin Stringer meanwhile has been involved in a little bit of an incident, we do believe, through the opening chicane. We do get a replay of what exactly happened. As he made his way down towards the braking zone here, I think it may just simply be that he's had to stop the car at very short notice onto the brakes. He went and a lock up there, missed his braking point and had to let the car run through, and that is going to severely hamper his advantage in the LMP2 class as we do return to the live pictures. And as he makes his way on past Ollie Wayne there, he'll know right now he can't afford too many more incidents like that, as obviously it is going to take a lot of excessive light out of the tyres, and therefore the SCCR Supersports driver may be conscious of the fact he won't have tyres to go to the end, because we have typically seen that our drivers prefer not to change their tyres in the pits. But meanwhile, coming back to Maggioni, chasing after Mark Sykes in the battle for P2 in the LMP2 class, as we ride on board the gearbox here of the next gen racing orange driver, looking back from his car to Maggioni behind. You see Maggioni there only 3.5 tenths back as they make the way out towards the final corner. Into the braking zone they'll shortly go. Maggioni closed up quite aggressively there. The Sykes goes a little bit deep and he brings it on through. The gap is 2/10 off of apex, and this will mean that Maggioni's well within attacking distance here as they head on to the start-finish straight. He gets closer and closer and closer. It's less than a tenth now as Maggioni peels to the inside. And as we do look to the exterior cameras here, it's too wide as they battle on down. Maggioni on the left of your picture, Sykes on the right of your picture. Onto the brakes they go. Maggioni a little bit later on the brakes there, and Sykes being a bit cautious. tucks in behind and looks for the run out of the Rettifilo chicane to try and get the run up towards Regia, but does not quite get the exit he wants, and therefore Maggioni gets the move done for P2 in the LMP2 class and presses on here as they make the way up towards turns 4 and 5 via Curva Grande. But as they come up towards the next 3 braking zone, the next gap for Maggioni to close down is the Kevin Stringer, and that gap currently standing at 12 seconds, and Maggioni will know it's a long way to go in this race, and that gap is going to take a lot of effort in order to bring it on down. Heading on through at Lesbo 1, we are hearing that Mark Arrowsmith has had to be towed to the pitch due to an incident off circuit. We're not quite sure what's happened to Arrowsmith after leading this race for some time, coming into the pits early to try and go for the ultimate undercut. But meanwhile, what we can be a bit more certain about is that Jamie Dorey, your leader in the LMDH Gold class, so you can see here on screen, the next gen racing orange drive being closed up by SCCR Simsports' Craig Jones, as Jones getting closer here as they make the way up through Lesmo 1, as we ride on board with the SCCR Simsports driver well in the attack and heading into Lesmo 2. The gap right now 4 attempts on average, and I think he'll be hoping that he can potentially try to come for a move come the next run down towards turn number 1. 20 minutes of this race complete, we've still got 40 minutes to go, and as he heads up towards the Ascari chicane, Jack Barker there on the outside, and Jones really going in. He does not want to be caught up behind traffic at all. He'll know that's going to cost him a lot of time, being very bold and brave there with the move as he heads on down towards turn number 11. Well, it has cost him a couple of attempts there in the long haul, and well, you can see there you do have the battle. Oh, goodness me! And with Scoot and Almclough battling there, and Jones in the contact, and the car just going on straight there as he brings it back together. And well, Jones will not be too best pleased with that as McCluskey goes on through, and well, that could have been very close to tears there. It wasn't quite, but it wasn't the way either of them wanted it to go. As we see Jones now having to press on, having lost one place when he's trying to gain another. As they head out towards turn number 1, with Scooter and Almclough battling for position there in the battle for GT3 at Bronze P4, and they would be mindful of their own battle, and I don't think it would have seen Jones coming into it was too late, but Almclough, to be fair, was just defending. Scooter meanwhile trying to look for his way around the contact between Scooter and Jones, but as they head out towards Curva Grande, both drivers seem to be carrying on, and meanwhile we look from them to Ben Bennyworth, who right now under pressure for the position overall of P19, with Johan Essen, the G3 Gold driver, hounding the rear of the GT3 Silver driver as they head down Serraglio. But as they head up towards Ascari, meanwhile Fluten Biakeka has Ollie Wayne to contend with, and Wayne trying to make more progress here versus the GT3 Gold drivers. The GT3 Silver leader does not want to be boxed in as they head out of Ascari. And meanwhile, across the circuit, that's Barry Jarman. And what on earth has happened to Jarman over the course of the lap? The car's gone horrifically on around there. We'll try and get a replay very shortly what exactly has happened. But as our drivers make the way on down and around, we can see here that things have calmed down between Wayne and Biakeka for the time being. With Bennyworth only 2 seconds behind, I would imagine that things will escalate rather rapidly. As meanwhile, into the pit lane come the majority of our drivers in the G3 Gold class, apart from Gavin Garner, who stays out in Biakeka as well. And speaking of Garner, here he is, he makes his way down towards the Rettifilo chicane once again. He'll be going 1 lap longer as it's pit stop time now for our GT3 drivers. They're all coming in around the same time. They try to take the fuel tank as long as they can, and of course they all want to pit around one another to gain the tow on each other, given the fact that slipstream, whilst it may not be too powerful, it's worth a couple of attempts a lap, and well, those attempts do add up lap in, lap out. But meanwhile, as we look back to the pit lane, of course, Eric Benson, your GT3 Gold leader when he came into the pit lane, leaving the pit lane currently as he makes his way out past the pit limiter line, brings himself back up to speed here, and will now the de facto strategic leader in the GT3 Gold class, release leader of the early stoppers, as he makes his way under braking into turn 1 and heads on through here. But the question is, has he done enough to stay ahead of Gardner and Biakeka as he comes on around and they come out the pits next time around, we suspect? We'll find out very shortly. But as he heads on down and through, meanwhile, in terms of other changes, we can tell you that Ole Martin Mjorg is still ahead of Stefan Vessels, with Elwin Sykes between the two of them. Sykes yet to take his pit stop, we should point out, and then Russell Fowler and Fred Extensible Duray still in P6 and P7 respectively in the GT3 Gold class, as it does seem as though the status quo has been kept between our drivers. But meanwhile, into the pit lane as well, look out my contact booth window, we do have Kevin Stringer in the LMP2 class, who's going from the lead of the class with an 11-second advantage over David Maggioni, who's also in, and I think the LMP2 drivers have pushed it as far as they can in terms of the opening stim. And meanwhile, we do take a brief moment to take a look back to what happened to Barry Jarman, the SCCR Simsports driver in the LMP2 class. Well, this was previously, and as he made his way down towards turn number 1 on the brakes here, and the car just snapping onto the grass, and well there, I think cold brakes. Jarman having come out of the pit lane after starting this race late, will have to navigate his way through the chicane, and then later on the same lap, coming on through Ascari, and was he made his way on around here. I think it's going to go wrong at turn number 10. Indeed, the car bounced down off the curb there onto the road, and the steering just sees him wide there as he caught the car, but it was too late for the number 3 machine, and it all went wrong for Barry Jarman. As we do return to live pictures now, we see Stefan Vessel's coming on through fast with only Martin Mjort to take position there. That's a P4 in the GT3 Gold class as they make the way down towards turn number 1. But meanwhile, whilst this is happening, we can tell you that now, in fact, this is a P2 in the GT3 Gold class as they head on to the brakes, and with what is Russell Fowler just behind and Gavin Garner just coming out in the battle for P5 for Frederick Stenson Dorey. Well, Dorey there coming out ahead of the extra racing pink driver as the team slow-mo driver retaking that P5 position, and he'll be grateful for the fact that by going for the undercut versus Gardner, it has worked out, because otherwise he would have lost out significantly in that strategic battle. But meanwhile, we look back up to Vessels versus Martin Mjork here, as we can see the racing team Astra Drive continue to try and hold on. And as they make the way out of Regia, I think things will briefly calm down as they head into Lesbos. But if Mjork can settle down and find the run through the next 2 corners, he may have an opportunity into Ascari or beyond. Now, of course, with the first pit stop complete at this point, now the race really does open up for our drivers here, where they know they've got to go a minimum of 35 minutes, and not more, up towards 40 minutes on the tyres, and also that single tank of fuel. So they settle down at this point and have to focus. But of course, you don't want to wait too long to start making moves, because of course every lap you spend behind another car, well, you may gain in terms of a bit of fuel efficiency, but it's not going to gain you places in the long haul unless drivers are under-fueled. But most of our drivers have taken pit times over resettle, so we would presume that everybody is successfully fueled up to the end of the race. But as our drivers press on here, we can see the Vessels now breaking away from York and holding on to P2 in the class. But meanwhile, we do look from them to what is Jamie Dorey, your LMDH Gold leader right now, who finds himself bunched up there behind Jorge Santos, the P4 G3 bronze driver. And as Dorey comes on through the second Lesbo, he has got McCluskey hot on his heels, and the next generation orange versus the next generation purple driver pair right now both pressing on, trying to take the strategy as deep as they possibly can, with Jones only a further 3 seconds off after coming out of position after the contact with Sean Scooter at Parabolica Curve. But as they head out through Ascari, the two right now nose to tail as they come charging on down. But as they head up towards turn number 11, the Briton here, I think he'll feel as though he's done enough just to keep McCluskey away from him from this corner. But of course, it's the run down the start for this straight, the longest stretch of the circuit, and with Alcott there steering clear on the outside line, Dorey won't be too compromised as McCluskey in fact loses a bit more time by comparison, and the gap opens up to half a second as they now go full throttle onto another lap. They head onto what is for them the 18th lap under race conditions in this feature, and as they come charging down, Dorey there again and negotiating the G3 traffic as best he can, but tucked in behind Espresso Rian, and this may cost him a bit of time in the run out of the chicane. And Will McCluskey there gets close, but Dorey finds a way on through, and McCluskey not able to put enough pressure on as they head up towards the Regia chicane. The parent on the round. Meanwhile, we look to Eric Svensson as we see the G3 bronze leader. He's only 1.5 seconds clear of this man, the charging Frenchman Jordan Babois, as they head into Lesbo 1. But as he comes through the right-hander in the 64th row, where you can see Svensson there, will steering clear at the moment, but with Bennyworth just in front, and both drivers have completed their pit stops now. It all comes around track position, and the change here for what is their Svensson is the fact that Babois is closing in terms of pace. That pace is growing lap in, lap out, and Svensson, I think, will feel as though he's being held up a little bit here by Bennyworth, but Bennyworth in return will feel as though he's giving it everything he's got, and he doesn't want to lose track position. And this becomes the challenge, of course, where you've got two drivers in similar machines in the G3 class, albeit in different driver classes. How do they work it around one another? We'll keep that in mind, because meanwhile, we do see Eric Benson, your G3 Gold leader, but a bit further back, we see here Stefan Vessels, Ole Martin Mjort and Stefan Albanese all battling for position, albeit Vessels and Mjort battling for what is class position, P2 in the G3 Gold class, and Albanese, your G3 Silver leader, trying to stay close to the pair and break away. Ollie Wayne is the driver he's worried about, of course, he's 13.5 seconds back. as they make their way through turn 3 and up towards turns 4 and 5. But as they come down towards the braking zone, well, Muir right now tucked in behind, no way through at the moment. Vessel's keeping the Ferrari driver at bay, but of course that Audi very sensitive to tyre degradation late on in the race. A very difficult car to drive in general, given the way that rear end is hypersensitive to steering angle adjustments, and when the tyre wear does start to kick in, potentially for Ascari, that's where it'll be the danger zone for the Audi drivers, where the car can become very loose under braking and also under medium speed acceleration. But as Vessel's here continues to keep Muir at bay, 7.5 tenths, he heads down Serraglio. I think he'll feel comfortable for now. Meanwhile, one driver who's not feeling comfortable trying to make ground, it's Gavin Garner looking for the battle for P5 here in the GT3 Gold class, and he gets it. For an extensible, Dorey just simply lets it go and tucks it behind. I think Dorey trying to play the long game here and focusing on the run down the start finish straight. But as Garner heads on out, well, Garner immediately opened that gap up to almost 6 tenths. They head down the final stretch, and I think for Garner at this point, his next target, Russell Fowler, who is 3 seconds up the road, but he can see his target, and I think he won't have to worry about the driver behind from Team Slow-Mo, Dorey, as he heads on through the final corner, because Dorey just not able to stay with him on corner to corner, and it is showing here as that gap opens up to 7 tenths. As we move our way into the second half of the race, but we're still waiting on our LMDH drivers to come into the pits in the LMDH BMW M V8 hybrid machines, and when we look to the race leaders here, Jamie Dorey still keeping Benjamin McCluskey at bay, as McCluskey here getting closer and closer. Now they find themselves behind some GT3 class track, and McCluskey here tucked in very close behind Dorey, but it's only really one wide as they negotiate. Ollie Wayne on their inside. McCluskey does go late on the brakes here to make sure he gets on through, trying to stay with Dorey and using Dorey as a battering ram. Meanwhile, speaking of contact, I believe Wayne just made a bit of contact with Magnus Lewis and Miakeka as the two drivers have come together. Miakeka bringing the car back up to speed, but let's take a look back at what happened. Was he made his way down into the braking zone? In fact, as he came on through, I think it might be a bit of a different story. In fact, Wayne going a bit deep, and Miakeka turning across the front there of Wayne. Well, that's going to be a very contentious one. I think Miakeka would argue he'd done enough to turn it into the corner apex, and I think Wayne in return would argue you can't just make a car disappear, and you can't just expect me to slam on the brakes right at apex. But both drivers then feel as though they had the right to the line, but Miakeka losing out as a result of that. And as we return to the live pitch, there's a change of overall position, not class position, for Wayne. Meanwhile, for Miakeka, he's lost P7 in the GT3 Gold class to Johan Ersson, so it's been quite costly for the Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver for Norway as he heads on down towards Ascari. Meanwhile, we look back to Dorian McCluskey, and the battle for the LMDH Gold lead continues here as McCluskey on the inside on the left of your pitch and Dorey on the right. And as the camera swings round under braking, too wide to go into the corner there, albeit McCluskey being squeezed a little bit by Dorey, and as they come out to the corner, they're still too wide as they head on down, and McCluskey has got a nose ahead as they power their way up through the gearbox, and they've got too wide there between what is Fowler and Albanese. They've got to pick the way through. Dorey then decided to go between the two GT3s. Meanwhile, McCluskey trying to go round the inside of the pair of them as they break the way down. Dorey is going to go all in, outside to inside. Meanwhile, McCluskey there tries to hang it round the outside of turn 2, but Dorey in an absolute brave piece of manoeuvring makes his way back into the lead of the class, and goodness me, if you're looking for one of the moments of the season, it's right there as Fowler and Albanese just given the LMDH Gold drivers enough room to negotiate around them whilst battling for overall position. In the end, Dorey being absolutely brave of heart as he makes his way through Regina now and decide nobody's going to take away his lead. But as he heads into Lesbo's heel, pick his way up the inside of Owen Martin York, and that gives Stefan Vessels a bit of breathing room as Leon McCluskey now will know that he does have Dorey potentially under pressure. But the problem is with all these GT3s he's picking up along the way, I think for McCluskey he's got to worry about the fact as he tries to make the way on down here towards Ascari chicane. Once again, McCluskey is losing out each and every time in terms of being able to close up, but onto the brakes he goes, the NXTGEN Racing purple driver, and as he comes on through here, the gap's back down to 4.5 tenths. But again, could Dorey potentially be doing some fuel saving, also some hybrid recharging at this point in the race, just trying to give himself a bit more longevity and a shorter pit stop? That's the factor here, because McCluskey is really stripping the time out of Dorey currently, and as they make the way into Parabolica Curve this time, again Dorey finds a bit of traffic. He finds the GT3 Gold leader Benson on the apex, but as they exit the corner and head their way on down, well, McCluskey this time 3.5 tenths and gradually closing, albeit I think more stabilising at this point and not really able to find the momentum. I think McCluskey letting it go this time into turn 1 and deciding no, he needs to focus on a little bit of strategy this time around. as they head on down through turns 1 and 2. Meanwhile, we do look to Jordan Benoit, who has found his way into the lead of the GT3 bronze class ahead of Eric Svensson. And as they make their way up towards turn number 11, well, Matthew Addy and Ben Bennyworth just ahead of the pair as they head on through. But meanwhile, we do take a quick look back to how Benoit made the move on Svensson for the lead of the bronze class. This was in the run out to turn number 3. I think Svensson may have made an error coming on through the opening corners. He's going slowly there, and I think he may have been serving a slowdown as a result of an incident in turns 1 and 2, and that would explain the story there. But Svensson losing out, and Benoit carrying on into lead of the class now, but he does have Svensson right behind him as we return to the live pictures as they make their way out of the Rettifidio chicane. And meanwhile, they have got Addy and Bennyworth for company just in front of them as they head up towards turns 4 and 5 once more. And well, Addy here will be focused on trying to find his way past Bennyworth. Of course, these two friends of circuit, rivals on circuit, in the battle for the GT3 P4 silver class position as he makes his way on through the chicane right now. Addy all over the back of Bennyworth, the closest you dare want to be out of Regia. Looking up the inside here, and I think Bennyworth just not able to cover it off in time, and Addy makes the move there into Lesmo 1. Meanwhile, Benoit goes a little bit deep, and meanwhile Craig Jones trying to pick his way on through, but has to settle in behind the two GT3 silver belligerents as they make the way out to Lesmo 2 and down towards Ascari. As they charge the way down here, still 25 minutes to go, plenty of racing still on the cards. Of course, our drivers here press it on, and meanwhile, Elwin Sykes trying to find his way past Jorge Santos and P5 in the GT3 bronze class as they head up towards Lesmo 1. As they come on through here, of course, Elwin Sykes trying to make up for lost time earlier in the race and pick his way out the positions, and looking, of course, Sean Scudder only 2.5 seconds up the road from the pair of them, looking for a prospect of a P4, and indeed if he can close up even more of the gap, he may have an opportunity to close down Almclub late on in the race, or with Almclub being currently 16 seconds up the road from Scudder, I do feel it's going to be a big aspiration, but Sykes here taking it one step at a time, looking up the inside of Santos into Ascari, and on the brakes they go here, and I think Santos will have to back out of this one as Sykes gets the move done there, classic move under braking into turn number 8, seals the deal there on corner exit of Ascari as he heads out to 10, simply with all the momentum on his side, and now it's a 4/10 advantage that goes the way of Elwin Sykes. He moves into P5 in the G3 bronze class. But heading down into the final corner here. Meanwhile, we do hear that Mark Baker is into the pit lane. In fact, we can look out our commentary booth window and confirm that, and that may be a sign now that the LMDH machines are due for a pit stop soon in terms of the fuel just starting to run a little bit dry. But as Jamie Dorey makes his way out of the final corner and down towards the timing line, where he does peel into the pits. No, he throws a dummy there and tries to deceive McCluskey into thinking he's coming in, but McCluskey's having none of it there as Dorey keeps everybody guessing as he makes his way down towards turn 1. But McCluskey will now know that Dorey may be thinking about that pit stop soon, given the dummy. Meanwhile, Magna Yolland in the pit lane from P3 in the LMDH Gold class, with Jones having already pitted, will mean that Jones will come out ahead of Yonland, given the relative delta between the two drivers. But as they head on around, meanwhile, we are hearing that Gaz Williams pressed it on. P5 in the LMDH Gold class, a lap down on the class, with the difficulties at the start of the race as part of the gridding procedure. As we said earlier, a number of drivers, including us from the commentary perspective, being essentially removed from the lobby, could go to the grid world drivers. But meanwhile, Jamie Dorey making his way through a Lesmo 1 here, finding GT3 class traffic, but using it to his advantage. As meanwhile, further back, only Martin Muir continuing to hassle the back of Stefan Vessels. They make the way out of turns 1 and 2 and heading on through Curva Grande as Craig Jones has re-emerged from the pit lane ahead of Magna Yolland with an advantage of what is 3 seconds, as we're to understand it. So Jones on course for a potential podium finish, but we continue to focus here on the battle for second place on the G3 Gold podium, and after being past the team slow-mo driver of Ole Martin Milk is doing anything but slowing down. In fact, he's speeding up as he makes his way through at turns 4, 5, up towards Lesmo 1. You see Russell Fowler in the rear of the picture there being hounded by Stefan Albanese, the G3 Silver leader, who in turn does have a sizable, what is it, a 13-second advantage over Ollie Wayne. And Albanese, I think, feeling very comfortable, albeit Wayne has a pit stop in favour, so Albanese just trying to go as long as possible here and trying to extend his race. As McCluskey, meanwhile, is into the pit lane from what we're hearing. I look out my booth window, and he is in from P2 in the LMDH Gold class. So it's McCluskey, not Dorey, who has diverted into the pits first and foremost out of the battle for the overall and the LMDH Gold win. but as Fowler here continues to keep Albanese back. Of course, he doesn't want to let Albanese go because he'll be expecting that Albanese will come in soon, and I wouldn't be surprised if Albanese is trying to use this as an opportunity to save some fuel behind the toe of the very fast Mercedes. It makes its way up towards turn number 11, but the Fornsling Esports driver here with a difficult end to his sprint race won't want it to end in the same way here in the feature race. He's got his main rival Gavin Gardner inching closer and closer as they make the way out to turn number 11 and down towards turn 1 they go, and Will Fowler here peels over and Albanese with him, but neither into the pit lane. Of course, Fowler having taken his stop already, Albanese yet to pit, but as they head on down, Will Gavin Gardner right now sitting a little bit further back, only what is approximately 1 second off of that battle, and the NXTGEN Racing Peak driver wants to inch closer at every lap turn as he wants an opportunity to have a shot at P4 in the gold class as a minimum today. But as he heads out to the Rotvido chicane, McLeod making his way around the outside and starting to pick his way past the GT3 drivers once again. And further back, we can tell you that Paul Scott has broken away from Matthew Addy and now is behind Magnus Luthen-Bikeka in the battle for what is P20 overall. It's not class position, with the GT3 Silver driver being behind the GT3 Gold driver. But as they head up towards turn number 3, both drivers here will look in to try and make further progress towards their respective opponents. But as they head on through, meanwhile, speaking of right now being caught between a rock and a hard place, this is Ben Beddyworth in P5 in the G3 Silver class. In front of him is the G3 Bronze leader, Jordan Benoit. Behind him is the G3 Bronze second place driver, X Vetson. And right now, the Silver driver, Beddyworth, is just keeping the two from one another. And I think he wants to try and find his way past Benoit, but Benoit would prefer that the Silver driver stays between the two of them as they head on through the chicane and up towards the Lesbos they go. But meanwhile, speaking of strategy, Jamie Dorey coming out of the pit lane, and where's Benjamin McCluskey in all of this? Was Dorey makes his way up to speed? I think he's nailed this on strategy because McCluskey is nowhere to be seen. Dorey back out in the lead with only a 20-second pit stop to McCluskey's 24-second pit stop, and that is all the difference there with McCluskey pushing so hard and Dorey fuel saving by the lap. Well, you can see the difference is it is a 4-second swing almost, in fact a 6-second swing in the pit lane, and McCluskey right now will have to absolutely press on here if he wants any opportunity to win this race. We know he's got the pace, but I think Dorey has been keeping it locked up for some time, has been pacing himself, and the strategy has worked out a treat here for Dorey. McCluskey now has got to do this on track. Jones not too far behind either, only 4 seconds off of McCluskey, and in terms of his relative pace, and matching McCluskey on average since they've left the pit lane, but the SCCR Sports driver will know that he's going to really push it if he wants to close up to McCluskey, as McCluskey already started to take time out of Dorey. As they head on through, meanwhile, Ollie Wayne here. Oh, goodness me, what's gone wrong for the NXTGEN Racing purple driver? He seems to have gone round on the exit at turn number 2, and this is going to demote him to P3 in the G3 Silver class as Matthew Addy comes on through the opening chicane here, where he'll see Wayne in the distance now. Wonder what on earth's happened and look for that opportunity, but we take a look back at what happened to Ollie Wayne. So in the run down towards turn number 1 on the brakes, he went here, no signs of going wayward initially. Powered through 1 A-OK, powered through 2, and the rear just unsettled there. We took a little bit of excessive apex curve, and you could see the rear left tyre just lifting slightly on rotation as he tried to get the power down. The rear right tyre ignited and said, right, we're going. And the rear left tyre said, whoa, 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 we haven't got any grip here, and that's what led to the car going on around in the end. But the NXTGEN Racing purple driver bringing it back together there and losing one place, and he'll be kicking himself for that one in terms of the mistake. But meanwhile, Gaz Williams in the pit lane, that will drop him out of the top 6 overall, and of course put him back to P5 in the LMDH Gold class, with him being a lap down by default, trying to make up lost time. We still do have just under 18 minutes of racing here, and so our battles could not be closer, including right now as we look to Russell Fowler, the Fornsling Esports driver, where you can see there Stefan Albanese behind it. Gavin Gardner is the one that Fowler will be worried most about, and Gardner here looking up the inside as Albanese finds himself boxed in by the Gold drivers as they head onto the brakes here. Gardner's not going to waste any time, but Albanese trying to outbrake the NXTGEN Racing Pink driver, can't quite find it for DRS Esports, as we can see Kevin Stringer there, your leader in the LMP2 class, coming up behind the trio. And now as they make the way through Curva Grande, he'll be looking to go all the way around the outside as the G3 stay pegged to the inside. And meanwhile, Stringer just goes all the way around here, using the downforce of the Dallara P217 to his advantage. But now Garner looking for another move. He looks around Valerie, can't quite find it as we jump aboard here with the NXTGEN Racing Pink driver as he heads through the Regia chicane. Now making the way out, of course, The one thing you have to keep in mind is these two have battled hard already in the sprint race today, and I think given their relative pace right now, and the fact that Ole Martin Milk's only 4 seconds up the road, if right now Gardner can clear Fowler, he will find himself trying to bring York into contention for a P3 battle right at the end. But as they power their way out of turn at number 7 and head down the Circular straight, well, the two drivers here could not be closer as they make their way up towards Ascari. Looking for his brake mark here, Gardner will be doing everything he can to lean into the car's ABS here in order to close up as much as he can as he comes through turn number 9 into 10. Powering his way back up through the gearbox. Meanwhile, Fowler, they're using all the width of the road, covers off the left-hand side. It does a quick switch to the outside in order to break the toe temporarily. But Fowler putting his faith in the Mercedes straight line speed. Gardner using the toe there to get his nose alongside initially. But as they look their way into Parabolica, keeps the door open to Fowler. But there Gardner doesn't fall for it, decides to back out. And as they power their way out the Parabolica curve, now it's the run down towards turn at number 1. Albanese are only 4 tenths on the back of this. And Albanese not really having to worry too much about fighting. As we see it there, Fowler bringing the car over to the right hand side. Gardner gaining the speed gradually in the toe. But there Fowler doing the little bit of a dip to the inside, breaking the toe temporarily, but on the brakes there, the two drivers absolutely inseparable in terms of their braking points as they come through the Rettivino chicane. You can see that Gardner gets the better transition between the two apexes, but the Mercedes driver Fowler just able to bury the throttle and run away and gain a couple of attempts there on corner X, and Mercedes being so strong under acceleration that it says they make the way up towards top speed with the toe also benefiting Gardner. That's where the gap is neutralised, and as they make their way through Regia, this chicane is where Fowler looks really vulnerable by comparison. He's just not able to carry the speed between the two apexes as smartly as Gardner is as they come down through Lesmo 1. Well, Maggioni is close up to the back of this battle, the P2 LMP2 driver. Of course, I think he'll wait for the run out of Lesmo 2 and on to the Circular straight before he comes on through. We'll see him make his way on the right of our drives very shortly, or will we here? It's not quite a long enough run, and Maggioni right now is still what is half a second off the back of Albanese, so I think he might pick on Albanese, but not on Gardner here, as Gardner right now loses out a little bit this time of the run for Ascari. But we stay on board into the end of this lap, and we'll see Fowler there making a bit of a ham sandwich on the run of turn 8. That destabilises the line through 9 and 10, and now Gardner will be hoping he can get a bit close, but it's a poor run off at turn number 10, and it means that the gap is reset to 3 tenths. Maggioni now looking up the inside of the pair, as you'll see on the right of your camera very shortly as they break the way in as they come through. Maggioni goes on the inside there of Fowler as well, and Fowler not able to connect the apex, and therefore Fowler now is going to be incredibly vulnerable because he's going to lose about 5 miles an hour on corner X here, and Gardner there also hindered but in the toe. But the Mercedes again, just look at the legs on that Mercedes in terms of how much speed it's able to deploy, and as they head down towards turn number 1, well, Gardner here I think is going to look for a bold move on the inside. I think he might have to lick the stamp and send it at this rate, because right now Fowler looking absolutely infallible even when his lines are disrupted. The Mercedes driver from Points-Link Esports just has the advantage that he needs here, and that Mercedes just able to work. But meanwhile, we look back to Jordan Bay-Bart, and there's been an instant here for the P2 GT3 bronze driver as he brings himself back on the circuit. In fact, he's lost the lead of the GT3 bronze class, and that's at the final corner. But the question is, how did it happen? Let's find out. Well, this is in the run down towards turn number 11, and not really battling or under pressure from anyone at this point. Under braking he went, and I think the rear of the car is just going to slide loose. Indeed it does, and they're just trying to carry a bit too much speed under braking and rotation. And the number 64 driver there loses that to Rex Vetstern, who is now your leader in the GT3 bronze class. But meanwhile, as we return to your live pictures, well, we've got plenty of battling still ongoing, including what is an off-track for Ole Martin York that has released Stefan Albanese and Fred Extensible Dorey up positions, and Fred Extensible Dorey moving into P5 in the GT3 bronze class in particular. But meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, Johan Ersson as well. Oh my good lord, and York's car there. Look at the rear right tyre, or from our perspective right now, the rear left. From this camera angle, the car is absolutely struggling to point a straight line, or what we like to refer to as crabbing on its suspension. And as he heads down towards Ascari here, what exactly happened? We'll try and get a replay very shortly. Oh goodness me, in that car, I think he's going to have to tie it because he just cannot get that car to move. In fact, it is towed, and now we do very shortly get a replay of what exactly happened to our Team Slow-Mo driver. losing it. They're coming out of Lesbo 2, running wide, and in the end, well, getting it wrong initially, and with all the momentum in the car, ended up bounding his way back to the outside barrier, and that's what completely destroyed the rear suspension of the car. But as we return to the live pictures now, we do look to Espresso Rien here, battling for P25 overall versus Ingot Almkov, the two team slow-mo drivers here, and particularly the team slow-mo leftovers driver Rien giving the space on the inside to Almkov, and Almkov trying to come through it with the fact that Baybois just up the road by half a second, and Almkov will want the P2 in the GT3 bronze class if he can to keep his championship hopes alive here versus Baybois. Of course, Baybois the championship leader going into tonight, and right now Almkov will want to make a further dent in Baybois' advantage, but as they head down towards turn number 1, Almkov up the inside here on what will be the left of your picture under braking, and well, you can see Rien giving his teammate all the space of day for Team Slow-Mo leftovers as they made the way on through there, not wanting to hold one another up, and as they make the way on out, now it's the charge up towards the Regia chicane, and Almkov will now have his target of Baybois firmly in his sights, but as they make the way on around and up towards turns 4 and 5, meanwhile we can tell you in the LMDH Gold class, here is your race leader of Jamie Dorey, but as he makes his way on through the Ascari chicane once again, it does look as though Dorey here is starting to lose out in his advantage over Benjamin McCluskey, because as we do bring up what is the time delta box very shortly on screen, what you will see between himself and McCluskey is the fact that after what is the pit stop, where it starts off a 6-second gap, ignoring the bottom lap there for when the pit stop occurred for McCluskey versus Dorey, but that gap has been halved effectively over the last few laps, and as they make the way on down now, well, you can imagine that McCluskey, at the rate of knots he's pushing, he will be feeling as though he can get the job done as time continues to wear on. How does that translate into lap time, I hear you ask? Well, as we bring it up here for Dorey versus what is McCluskey, we can see that Dorey on what is the last couple of laps losing half a second on average compared to McCluskey, and as they head on round now, McCluskey I think definitely feeling as though with 10 minutes to go there's an opportunity here for him to take the win in the class. But as we do complete our analysis of their lap times and how the gap has come down from lap to lap, meanwhile we're hearing that Stefan Albanese has finally come into the pit lane from what was at the time P2 in the my apologies, the lead of the GT3 Silver class to take his mandatory pit stop. They'll put back in P5 when all is said and done. Well, they try to go as long as possible, but meanwhile we do look here to Ingot Almkov up the inside of Baybois into turn 1. He goes very deep, he misses his braking point, and as Baybois comes on through, Almkov's gained the position off track. He will be required to give the space back, and he does indeed as Baybois returns to P2. But Almkov now really showing his gutsy integrity here in terms of wanting to make the move, and the Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver almost getting it right, but clutching over the apex of turn 2, and now he'll look to try and do it again, but this time just make his braking point as they head through the Regia chicane. They're heading on down and through. They've got Albanese just behind, and Albanese I think feeling feisty here and wanting to try and make headway towards what is Ben Bennyworth, who by relative comparison is approximately 6 seconds up the road with the time remaining. But as this heads on, we can give you an update that Russell Fowler still holding on to P3 in the GT3 Gold class as the battle for that position between himself and Garen Gardner continues here on the start-finish line straight. But you can see Gardner all over the back of Fowler, but just not able to get closer now than 2.5 tenths by the time they get to turn number 1. And that's a sign, of course, of just how evenly matched these drivers are, with Gardner having the toe and having the run of the corners, but Fowler having the run of the straights by comparison. And as they exit out of turns 1 and 2, the Performance League Esports driver just doing everything right so far, which is keeping his head down and not making any errors as he heads towards the closing stages of this race. But as they make their way up towards turns 4 and 5, carrying on their way. Meanwhile, we do look from them back up to Paul Williams, your LMDH Silver leader here, by an advantage of almost 1.5 minutes now over Mark Baker, with Callum Jenkins not making it to the grid due to technical issues, and the Speed 9 Esports drivers here looking to make it a 1-2, albeit Paul Williams absolutely in a world of his own as he heads down towards the Regia chicane. Not too many more laps to go for the Briton, but definitely right now with the results today, I think if he's able to nail it again next time out, he will be taking the championship crown around early, given the drop scores in effect. But meanwhile, we look from one driver who's completely out front to one driver who right now he's out front to a degree in his class, in the G3 Gold class, but he'll see behind him Stefan Vettel's there, not too far behind. The gap between the two of them 2.7 seconds on the average over the last couple of laps, and that's Eric Benson here for Team Slow-Mo, the Norwegian, keeping his rival just at arm's distance, but also being kept honest here as they make the way through, and the two drivers exchanging lap times as if it's going out of style. And to put that in perspective between the two of them, as we bring up the lap times here, we can see that over the last couple of laps they have constantly been back and forth with the traffic as well. No real gain or loss between the two of them, one gaining on one lap, one losing on the next lap, and that goes to show you how much they are pushing one another all the way over the distance. But heading on through onto another lap. Meanwhile, we do look from there, of course, to Baywell versus Almklov, and as we ride on board the gearbox here of the lead Ferrari driver in that battle for P2 in the G3 bronze class, with a mistake of Baywell costing the lead of the class versus Svensson, who is up the road, only 2.6 seconds clear, and Baywell and Almklov, to be fair, are lapping on average 6 tenths a lap faster than Svensson over the last couple of laps. So this could go down to the wire. Svensson does not find any pace to stabilise that gap. Well, right now, Baywell will be hoping that he can just keep Almklov far enough away for a couple more laps to really bring the gap down. And on the lap as they head the way across the timeline this time around, so for Svensson, it's a 49.17. Meanwhile, for Baywell, it's a 48.92. So the gap comes down a little bit, but not enough. But Almklov here sets a 48.24. He's done an absolute brilliant lap. Almklov comes in absolutely right hard under braking here. Baywell on the inside, he turns into Almklov. Baywell finds him there, and as they make the way through, it's too wide, and Almklov getting the gloves off, and this could be a result that will dictate the championship with 2 rounds to go as they make the way through turn number 3. Baywell holding firm here, and Almklov showing no signs of hesitancy anymore as they make the way up towards the Regina chicane for what is for them the 30th time of asking. Baywell defends in the middle of the road here, conscious of the fact that Almklov, if he sees the insides open, he'll go for it under braking, and as they make the way out and up towards the Lesbos, Baywell immediately defended to the inside. All this movement to the inside will cost him time as they head through turn number 6. He goes deep, he goes wide, and Almklov's off into the gravel as he gradually rejoins here, and as he comes back on, Albanese steers clear with Spencer Rien just behind. And Albanese right now powering on through, and Rien will be thinking about trying to come through to battle with Albanese, as meanwhile in a further twist we've got Matthew Addy, who's moved up into P2 in the G3 Silver class with an off track for Paul Scott. We can see in the rear of the picture there, and I think it's gone very wrong for Paul Scott at the Ascari chicane. We'll try and get a replay of what exactly happened shortly. We're hearing that Mark Baker's into the pit lane from P2 in the LMDH Silver class to take on some emergency fuels, where to understand it, but indeed late battling drama here for a good number of tries, and we take a look back at what exactly happened to Paul Scott. Will make his way through. Oh goodness, being under brake in there, under the, what was the run through turn 8 into 9. The next gen racing orange driver ended up with a slide that took him to the wall, and well, the 85 Audi are definitely seeing better days today. But meanwhile, as we return to the live pictures with only 4 minutes plus the final lap to go here, we see Addy still being chased by Olin Martin Gilman trying to chase down Ollie Wayne. But meanwhile, we come back to Almklov versus what is Espresso Rien, and Rien really eager to look for his way through versus Almklov. And they've been trying to send the signal here, which is he wants to go and battle after Albanese, but Albanese goes deep. And as Rien comes on through here, well, he'll be thinking about, can he gain on Albanese, as Albanese tries to get himself back up to speed as they make the way through Curva Grande. And powering on through here, we see Albanese going slowly. Rien being made to look round the outside to inside as they make the way underneath the gantry. And Rien's already got his nose ahead on the inside as they battle the way under breaking into the Regina chicane, and Rien up to P5 in the Silver GT3 class as he comes on through there in a classic form. Meanwhile, it's Fowler versus Gardner in the battle for what is their P3 in the G3 Gold class. Gardner on the outside through Parabolica curve, and with 2 more laps to go for these two, we reckon they make the way down towards turn number 1, and once again Gardner just cannot find a way to get through. He can get alongside, he can do everything other than get a nose ahead. And as they make the way down towards Retvido this time, well, Fowler covers off Gardner there. Gardner backs off a little bit early, I think trying to lull Fowler into a full sense of security and trying to get the cutback run out of turn 1 into 2, but not finding it. And as Fowler powers his way back up the gearbox, that Mercedes is absolutely looking rigid in that P3 position. There's no way through for Gardner. He's going to need to get Fowler to make a mistake, but that's the one thing that Fowler just does not do is make mistakes. They make the way through Regia this time, and well, of course these two coming together at this chicane, albeit I think the two will treat it as a racing incident in the sprint race, but now no signs of it getting scrappy. A beautiful race as Fowler takes a little bit of grass on entry into Lesmo, and he's got to be careful of that, because that will unsettle the rear left tyre from the driver's perspective. If he keeps doing that, he could be at risk of the car sliding away from him on the next lap. But as he makes his way down Sarah Cleo, you can see the gap 2 tenths as they power their way on down. And we can give you an update in the battle between Dorey and McCluskey for the over on the LMDH Gold lead. McCluskey not closing anymore in that battle. Dorey keeping McCluskey at bay. But as they make their way on through here, we focus on the battle for P3 in the G3 Gold class, while the closest battles on circuit. And heading up towards Parabolica Curve this time. You see Garner just getting such a strong run off of Scari, but then Fowler just able to bury the throttle and have the confidence the Mercedes will keep him safe as they head up towards the final corner for the penultimate time. When they come on around this time, next time around, it will be the final conclusion to their race today. And as the Next Gen Racing peak driver here stays ever close, well, they've got quite a gap to the overall race leaders. They will not be getting additional laps after the one they've gone on to. It's the final lap in this battle, and will it be Fowler or Garner who's on the final step of the G3 Gold podium? Well, Garner here takes a look on the inside. He can't quite find it initially as Fowler stays clear, and ahead we ride on board the gearbox, looking back from the Mercedes machine, and as the monster unleashes the V8 monstrosity under its hood. Meanwhile, we can see there the Ferrari with its own V8 with the turbo, just not able to match by comparison as they head up towards turns 4 and 5. There's no further battles happening on circuit. All other battles seem to have calmed down, ladies and gentlemen. So we're staying with this all the way on around. And in fact, they will have one more lap after this. We should correct ourselves, because the race leaders right now only coming on through towards the rest of those chicanes. So Fowler here on his penultimate lap. He's going to be made to go the distance here. And you can see Garner by comparison staying close but not pushing the limits through Lesmo 1. Fowler by comparison using all the road whip surface, and as they come through Lesmo 2, Garner getting the better run off the corner, gets within 1.5 tenths, and this is how close he's got to be in order to be able to stay within attacking distance as they power the way on down. Well, now he looks to the outside, does Garner. Fowler defends here, it's going to be 2 wide into Ascari, but only 1 wide at the apex. Garner carries it around, and Fowler there with a slow run over the corner. Garner's going to carry the speed, but he has to back off there for Ascari. He just cannot make it 2 wide all the way through, and Fowler making that Mercedes wide enough to circumvent the attacking potential of Garner as they head down towards what is Parabolica Curve, and this will be the penultimate time. We'll get it right this time as they make their way through the right-hander. The clock has struck over an hour already, but the race leader overall is only just heading out to Ascari. So for Fowler versus Garner, it will go 1 more lap in the distance as they make their way down towards turn number 1. But meanwhile, as they head on through, we must look back here to your overall leader, Jamie Dorey. It's been a flawless run from start to finish, and as he comes out the final corner, the checker flag will await him. He heads the line, and it's Next Gen Racing Orange's Jamie Dorey who takes the win overall and in the LMDH Gold class here in the feature at Monza. 1.3 seconds clear over Benjamin McCluskey, who finishes P2, and then very shortly we will have Kevin Stringer who crosses the line, your winner in the LMP2 class in a superb drive ahead of what will be Ollie Waynes there, your winner in the G3 Silver class, and shortly behind him will be Mark Baker, who finishes in the lap down P2 in the LMDH Silver class. We do have more drives coming on through, including what will be Paul Williams here to make it another win in the LMDH Silver class as he comes on around. But before he comes on through, it is Eric Svensson who's cross-line your GT3 bronze winner for Team Slow-Mo Black, and then it will be Paul Williams there who takes the LMDH Silver win. But as they make their way across the timeline, we've got one more winner to crown, and it is of course that battle in the GT3 Gold class. As we hear that Garner and Fowler have exchanged places, but meanwhile Benson here under pressure from Vessels as they make their way to the final quarter. It's 1.5 seconds, and Benson has been closed up over the last couple of laps by 7 tenths a lap, but I think he's got enough yardage here to feel safe all the way to the finish line. But as he comes through the final corner, it has been an absolutely solid drive from the Team Slow-Mo driver. It's been measured, it's been consistent, it's been calm, it's been collected, and as the Norwegian heads the line, line. I think he's critical on fuel. He's practically out of fuel, but he crosses the line. Your winner in the GT3 Gold class by 7 tenths in those Stefan Vessels. And then it will be behind the racing team Astra driver Gavin Garner, who rounds off the podium there for Next Gen Racing Pink. Or is it, as Fowler comes on through? I think Garner's out of fuel at the end of the line, as we see that Fowler comes on through and in the end takes P3. But Garner flashing his lights and brilliant racing between the two of them. Now, how was the move made, I hear you ask? Will we take a look back and find out exactly? And this was in the run into Lesmo 1, and well, as they came on through, there was contact there between what was Russell Fowler and Jorge Santos by the looks of things. In fact, we take another look back at that from Garner's perspective. And under braking into the corner, oh goodness me, and in the end, it was Fowler there looking up the inside of Santos, and it all went wrong between the two of them. So I guess the big question is, what happened after that, given that Fowler started to make his way back up to speed, and was Garner out of fuel come the finish line? That's the question. As they made the way down towards Ascari, we can see here Garner battling for position, and as they headed on down into the braking zone, well, no change here on the brake, and I'm wondering what exactly happened. Was we do hear the drivers making their way on through, and in fact, as we do jump to Gavin Garner and right on board the gearbox, let's listen in. No signs of running out of fuel at the moment. In fact, I think he's run out of fuel just literally at the end there, Gavin Garner, with only about 100 yards to line. In fact, if we listen in again, I think, did he yield the place at the very end? We're not quite sure on that, but either way, I think we cut away just before we could hear. But as we do ride on board, let's listen in again to Gavin Garner. And in fact, he yielded the place at the end. Sportsmanship being shown there by Gavin Garner to yield the position right at the end to what was Fowler. I think feels like he gained the position without battling right at the finish, and he didn't want it to be that way. Well, if so, credit to Gardner. I think Fowler will be a little bit gobsmacked at that, but what a way for them to end the race together. And well, speaking of that battle conclusions, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries as they're now in. Well, we can see that Jamie Dorey taking the overall win in our feature race day in round 8 of the Proto GT3 Championship Season 2, hosted by Next Gen Racing on iRacing at the Monza Grand Prix circuit. And the advantage there for Next Gen Racing Orange's driver, only 1.3 seconds come the finish over Benjamin McCluskey for Next Gen Racing Purple. And it was SCCR Silver Sports' Craig Jones who rounded off the LMDH Gold podium. Manly on P4 there for Team Slow-Mo Black in another consistent finish, ahead of Paul Williams, the Speed 9 Esports driver, making it 2 wins out of 2 today in the LMDH Silver class, ahead of Gaz Williams, who finished P6 a lap down for Next Gen Racing Purple. And then Kevin Stringer, your LMP2 class winner for SCCR Sim Sports there in redemption from the sprint racer today, ahead of Mark Baker, who finished P2 in the LMDH Silver class, P8 overall for Speed 9 Esports, ahead of David Maggioni and Mark Sykes, who rounded off the LMP2 podium there for Next Gen Racing Orange, and with it the top 10. Best of the rest outside the top 10, your GT3 overall winner and GT3 Gold winner, Eric Benson, in a flawless drive for the Team Slow-Mo driver, ahead of Stefan Vessels for Racing Team Astra and Performance Link Esports' Russell Fowler to round off the GT3 Gold podium. And as we continue to focus now on podium finishers and class winners, we can see Ollie Wayne there, P18, your GT3 Silver winner for Next Gen at Racing at Purple, finishing 5 laps down at come the finish on the overall winner. And as we continue to make our way on down through the results there, Paul Scott and Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing Orange and the Privateer outfit respectively rounded off the GT3 Silver podium, and with it P19 and P20 overall. Eric Svetston, P22 there for the Team Slow-Mo Black outfit, taking the G3 Bronze win, a well-deserved class win, ahead of Jordan Baywell, who just didn't have enough in the tank to bring it on home the winning class, but still that P2 will go a long way for the Privateer as he looks to close out the championship. And then Ingar Almclough couldn't quite make it a P2 ahead of Baywell, but he'll take that P3 for Team Slow-Mo leftovers in the G3 Bronze class. And he's still got work to do if he wants to upset the momentum that Baywell has on his side. But in terms of retirements as well, as we continue to look down the standings, we did have 3 retirements in fact 4 retirements in this race as we're to understand it. I do believe we had the retirements of Stefan Albanese 8 laps from the finish, although we are not quite confirmed on that. In fact, I do believe Albanese finished the race 8 laps down, but we can confirm we did have the 3 retirements of Nigel Stock. They're the privateer in the LMP2 class ahead of Mark Arrowsmith and also Barry Jarman there for SCCR Sim Sports. But as we now come on to the individual class finishing positions, starting with the LMDH Gold class, we can see here Jamie Dorey taking up the winning class for NXTGEN Racing Orange by 1.3 seconds over NXTGEN Racing Purple's Benjamin McCluskey, with Craig Jones a further 13 seconds off come the finish for SCCR Sim Sports. Magny Holland, P4 there for Team Slow-Mo Black, ahead of Gaz Williams, who round off the LMDH Gold class a lap down, having joined the race late due to technical issues for NXTGEN Racing Purple. And as we come on to the LMDH Silver class, we only had 2 participants in this race. Paul Williams taking the win for Speed9 Esports over his teammate Mark Baker by 2 laps come the end. And as we come on to the LMP2 class, we can see here Kevin Stringer taking the win for SCCR Sim Sports by 12.5 seconds over David Maggione, the privateer. Not quite able to make it 2 wins out of 2, but definitely one to watch for a double podium today, including a win in the sprint. And then Mark Sykes from NXTGEN Racing Orange once again on the podium there in a solid drive. Nigel Stock retiring in the race 18 laps from the finish, ahead of Barry Jarman for SCCR Sim Sports there, not able to take to the grid due to technical circumstances. And then we do come on to the GT3 classes, starting with the GT3 Gold class, and we can see Eric Benson taking the win for Team Slow-Mo by only in the end less than half a second over Stefan Vessels, the racing team Astra driver, closing down Benson, who practically ran out of fuel on the finish line, as we're to understand it, but Benson just doing enough to keep the South African at bay. The Briton of Russell Fowler bringing on home P3 there for Performance Link Esports, just ahead of Gavin Gardner in their brilliant battle from start to finish. The NXTGEN Racing Pink driver missing out on the podium, but still I think pleased with the battle he undertook. And then Fredrik Stensbold completing at the top 5, but that P5 finish will definitely impact his advantage in the championship with 2 rounds to go for Team Slow-Mo. Johan Essen at P6 there, his teammate, not quite on the pace today, ahead of Magnus Flutenbjerg for Team Slow-Mo, leftovers finishing a lap down, and 2 laps down Ole Martin Mjork come the finish for Team Slow-Mo. We then come to the GT3 Silver class. And we can see here Ollie Wayne from NXTGEN Racing Purple taking the win by 16.7 seconds in what has been an absolutely dominant day today for Ollie Wayne in the Mercedes for NXTGEN Racing Purple, ahead of NXTGEN Racing Orange's Paul Scott, and then a further second behind Matthew Addy completing the podium there, the privateer, and then Benny were 4 seconds off of the top 3, the privateer in the Porsche, making the Porsche work much like Matthew Addy, and them showing that whilst it may not have been the fastest car today, they were able to get the most out of it. Espresso Rien at P5 there for Team Slow-Mo leftovers in another top 5 finish, ahead of Jack Barker for Made for Racing, with Stefan Albanese for DRS Esports finishing ahead of Mark Arrowsmith, calm at the checker flag, albeit Arrowsmith for that early retirement, 24 laps from the finish. In the G3 Bronze class, meanwhile, to round off our finishing positions in the standings in class, Eric Svensson completing that run to bring home the win for Team Slow-Mo Black, 2.6 seconds clear of Jordan Baywell come the checker flag, and Jordan Baywell will be ruining what was missed today, but he'll be pleased that he kept Ingot Almclough behind him, his main rival at the moment, and with that P3, Ingot Almclough right now, we know that he needs to dominate in the next 2 rounds if he wants to subvert the championship going to Baywell. Still, the Team Slow-Mo leftovers drive demonstrating great pace today, ahead of Sean Scudder from Racing Team Astrofish P4, ahead of his teammate Elwyn Sykes there P5, the 2 South Africans not on the podium but showing podium pace, and they'll be hoping to bring that to bear next time out at Magny-Cours. And then Jorge Santos and Ian Fisher P6, a little bit further back there the privateer, but still bringing it home to the checkered flag. But that's how all of our drives finish, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we're not quite done just yet, in the fact that we do have our post-round interviews coming up very shortly. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes to find out the perspectives of our drives and what they thought of today. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And today we have 3 drivers who have volunteered their time to give us some rather unique perspectives. And we're going to be hearing from both the prototype and also the GT3 classes. We'll be starting off with the number 20 driver from SCCR Simsports, Kevin Stringer, in the LMP2 class, to hear his thoughts on what has been a mixed evening of results, but a double podium all the same for the LMP2 driver, before coming on to our GT3 Silver class double winner for NXTGEN Racing Purple of Ollie Wayne in the 18 Mercedes. And now we're hearing from the number 27 driver from South Africa. You know and love him as a racing team astronaut, Stefan Wessels, in the GT3 Gold class, who pushed hard today but couldn't quite bring home the win in either race and was hit with a penalty in the sprint. But without further ado, let's bring Kevin Stringer in to the interview room. And as he joins me now, Kevin, it looked hard, it looked fast and frantic out there of the racing, but what didn't quite work out in the sprint, you were able to recover and bring home as a win in the feature. A positive day in Monza, or was it a missed opportunity to perhaps start to wrap up the championship?
No, it's totally positive. The first race was, like you say, not the that was quite frustrating, but that's the way it goes. I've been quite lucky in them incidences throughout the season, so there's about time I got a taste of it, I suppose.
Oh, indeed. And before we come on to what happened in the sprint race itself, just talking a little bit more about qualifying, it looked as though in qualifying you found the lap time quite early on in the session, and whilst Maggioni set quite a strong time, nobody seemed to be able to come close to yourself. You must have been pleased with a qualifying lap in the end that was 6 tenths clear of the field.
Yeah, I put in the effort. I'd done plenty of practicing. Actually, I probably could have gone a little bit quicker. I was hoping I could have gone a little bit quicker. But like I say, I wanted to do well here because of last week things didn't quite go to plan, so I wanted to sort of put it right, really.
Oh, indeed, and started off strong with the qualifying session, and then going into the sprint race, we saw David Maggioni having, in the end, what was a jump start by the looks of things, but then you found yourself in a little bit of an incident involving, well, yourself and your teammate, the worst possible person to have an incident with, as they say in racing.
Yeah, that's it. I took him out at Spa. He took me out here. So between the two of us, that's 1-1 now, and
Oh, indeed. We saw the two of you coming together. It looked as though Barry just came in a little bit hot on the brakes and ended up turning you across him. But after you two had settled your differences, you started to recover. And, well, you recovered well to finish P3 in the class. But you had to fight your way through for it.
yeah, I just had to stick with it, and just make the most of it. And that worked out, didn't it? So it was worth it.
And just in that sprint race, of course, when you're having to make that recovery, you've only got 20 minutes to do it, and you start to negotiate all that GT3 class traffic. Just take us through from your perspective how you get through the GT3s, because we've seen the LMP2s are fast at the very top end, and they carry more speed through the corners, but it's so tight around Monza, it's almost as if you have to dive to get past them.
It can be. I got quite lucky there, I think, in the sprint race with the GT3s, and that kind of worked out okay for me. I think they were better here than they were, say, at Indianapolis. I wasn't too bad, really.
Well, that's a positive to hear. And then looking forward, of course, to the feature race. With that P3 finish in a class of 5, it meant you'd be starting P3 on the grid for the feature. A strong start, and you very quickly made your way to the front of the field, and you never looked back.
No, I got to the front, but I knew from practicing here that you didn't really have to fuel save, but you had to be quite perfect with the pit stops, and we all came in with half a lap to spare at the first pit stop. So the second stint, me and David, I think he was fuel saving as well. So it was just maintaining a gap with him and fuel save until the end, just to get there.
Indeed, and through the fuel saving, of course, this circuit being one that is predominantly about flat out on the throttle from start to finish. Just take us through what you were doing to fuel save. Was it sort of lift and coast, a bit of short shift, or a bit of the mix, given the fact that clutch dumping's no longer viable as we're to understand it?
Just lifting before I brake. So like where I'd usually say brake at the freeboard, I'd lift at the 2 and then brake just a fraction later, because you've already lost a bit of speed. I was doing that, and then I found that he wasn't gaining on me, so I assumed he was doing the same as me, hoping that I'd run out of fuel and he could get the jump. So then I just sort of took it a step further and fuel saved a bit more just to make sure that I could definitely make it to the end.
Oh, and well, a very well managed race, and come the checker flag, taking the win by 12.5 seconds, really meaning that this double podium plus the win today is giving you the momentum with only 2 rounds to go. And I have to ask, how are you feeling in your championship crown aspirations now? Do you feel as though it's almost there, or is it just 1 round at a time?
I think it's almost there. I do feel for Nigel today because he had computer issues, which meant that his feature race was over. And you know, he could have quite easily pulled off a second there, you know, with a bit of luck at the start. So it is unfortunate for him, really. He's been quite unlucky, I think.
Oh, indeed. His bad luck does seem to come back to haunt him time and time again over the course of this season, but that is the way it goes in motorsport, as they say. And looking ahead to next week, we head to the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours for the final sprint and feature combination round of the season. How are you feeling for it?
I don't know it, but I don't think anyone else knows it either because it's quite a new circuit. So that could be quite interesting to see who, you know, puts in the effort to learn it the best.
Oh, indeed, it's going to be a bit of an unknown variable, like you say, with it being a relatively new circuit. It'll be interesting to see how you get on in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Kevin, as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yep, always thank yourself. You know, you do a great job, and we're thankful for that. The guys at SCCR, you know, they're always good. We look out for each other. We always have a good laugh, you know, during the race, and it's a pleasure to race with them guys. And also my wife, you know, being supportive and let me do it.
Well, I'm sure your wife and also the guys back at the factory at SCCR Sim Sports will be very grateful for the mention, and indeed, thank you for the kind words regarding the broadcast, Kevin. But with that, it has been a pleasure, as always, to have you in the interview room. Congratulations on your double podium and the win in the feature today, and we look forward to seeing you out at the circuit in France in a week's time.
All right, thank you. I'll catch you a bit later. Cheers.
All the best. So hearing that there from Kevin Stringer, LMP2 driver with the double podium today, including the win in the feature, really started to give him the opportunity to put one hand on that championship crown. We've seen time and time again over the course of this season, and it's a fair point from Kevin with regards to the bad luck that Nigel Stock has had versus the relatively good luck, but also the very strong run of form and putting the effort in his own words, that we've seen from Kevin from start to finish, and it is all starting to shine through to those final stages now, and with only 2 rounds to go, he could in theory wrap it up next time out if results go his way and against the way of his competitors. But I get the feeling he'll be taking it one race at a time, and of course nothing can be taken for granted, as we saw at the start of today's race, where it does seem as though the lady luck aspect of where he came together with his teammate back at Spa came back to haunt him, with Barry Jarman coming together with him into turn 1 in the sprint. But we're certainly going to see more racing action from the LMP2 driver as we carry on. As we now look ahead to our next interview for today, well, very shortly we're going to be hearing none other than from Ollie Wayne, our GT3 Silver double winner for today, and it'll be interesting to hear his perspective on what has been a dominant run of form and also the strength of the Mercedes from start to finish, and just how he was able to make it work and maximise the potential of its V8 engine. But as he gets ready to join us now, in fact he does join us now, Ollie, it's a pleasure to see the roar of the Mercedes out on the Monza circuit, and it's a great piece of news for everybody, I think, involved, to see you right back on your perfect form with a double win today. I have to ask you, however, was this to be expected, or is it a bit of a miracle in the Mercedes?
No, I think... oh, hi, Paul, you're right. No, I think the Merc, obviously, straight line speed's mega on it, so I think everyone knew it was going to be quick round Monza. I wouldn't call it a perfect run, as I dropped it on the chicane in the second race. But yeah, it's been a good night. It's nice to be up there again.
Oh, indeed. And from the very start, We have seen from yourself today really delivery in the Mercedes with straight line speed. And talking about qualifying, it was a close qualifying session for the most part, but as the session went on, it almost seemed as though it all came down to the finest of margins. Just take us through from your perspective the qualifying session.
Yeah, so I actually had a lot more pace. I think I did a 48 flat or something in qualifying, but my optimum was like a 47.2, and I think the gold class pole was like a 7.6. So I just couldn't put the lap together. So I was kicking myself, and when I looked at the results, I realised I was actually the quickest out of the silvers anyway. And then I sort of knew, I was like, all right, okay, yeah, we've got the pace today.
Oh, goodness me. Well, despite the fact you didn't quite hit the lap you wanted, still in the end, taking pole position in the silver class ahead of Paul Scott by a margin in the end of what was 1.7 tenths was no mean feat. And then translating that into the sprint race, we saw you have quite a flying start, but it did look as though there was a bit of a traffic jam and a coming together in the run for the opening corners.
Yeah, and at the first corner I went in, somebody, I think one of the LMPs span, and I somehow managed to sort of cut through, and Paul was like past me on the left, and then I just managed to sort of squeeze through without hitting anyone, and then that kind of gave me the gap, and I was in amongst the sort of gold guys at that point, so I just kind of thought, well, you know, if I can sort of stay with them and just kind of get towed along, and I think Stefan Vessels came up, I sort of let him straight through so he could fight for his position, and I just kind of tried to keep it on the track at that point, really.
Oh, indeed. And after clearing the danger and, of course, like you say, keeping it on track, I have to ask, with this Monza circuit, we've seen many a GT3 driver in the past get it wrong through the legendary corners such as Ascari and even through the chicanes. Just how much on edge are you over the whole lap, particularly with that beastly engine, the Mercedes, and the fact it's very driven by those rear wheels?
Yeah, it gets a bit tasty on the exit sometimes, especially coming out of Ascari. There's a few laps where it just starts, sort of the rear just starts dancing around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's exciting is probably a good word.
Oh, indeed, and having that delicate balance which he carried through into the feature race, of course, having to start from the back of the class in the feature, but we saw you make some progress rather early on and gradually make your way up through the field, but you had to pick off a number of drivers who weren't just going to let you drive on by, including Paul Scott and Matthew Addy.
Yeah, I think again I had a pretty lucky start in the feature race. I had a bit of a battle with Mark Baker and Ben Bunnyworth. And then I got past them, I got a couple of seconds gap, but then I got stuck behind the sort of gaggle of the gold cars, and I didn't really want to start trying to get through them because obviously they're having their own race. But then Ben started catching me up, so I was like, right, I need to start getting through these guys now. I think Mark was up ahead a little bit as well. Yeah, it was it was pretty tasty at times. I was expecting to have a bit more of a battle with Paul as well later on, but it was a bit unlucky going through the chicane. I think it just got the curb.
Yes, we did see Paul Scott having a bit of an incident with the chicane, which of course to his detriment was to your benefit. But I have to ask, with regards to strategy, did you execute the strategy you had planned from the start, or did you tweak it over the course? Because we saw all the GT3s really coming at about the same time.
So I kind of thought about it before the start, that if I'd got stuck in traffic I was going to pit early, but I didn't really want to do that because obviously I'd have had to do a longer stint on the tyres towards the end of the race. As it happened, I was stuck in traffic, I was considering it, and then it kind of opened up again, so I sort of just went as long as I could just to kind of shorten that second stint as much as possible.
That makes sense, and quite a smart move from yourself. And then run it to the finish. We saw as you went on to that second stint, the gap between yourself and the rest of the field just kept on growing and growing. And well, even in the end, trying to harass some of the GT3 Gold drivers come the finish line by the looks of things. It must put a smile on your face to bring home the win by 16 seconds come the checkered flag.
Yeah, it was a pretty nice feeling. Like I say, I felt a bit daft when I spun at the chicane in the feature race, and I thought I'd handed Paul the win. So I wasn't sure whether I was going to catch him anyway. It would have been nice to have a battle with him again because, like I say, last week at Le Mans was brilliant, and we always have a good clean race together.
Oh, Well, most definitely. It was a classic at Le Mans. It wasn't to be today, but we still got 2 rounds to go. And next week, it's the Circuit de Nevers Magny-Cours. How are you feeling for the French circuit?
I've not driven it yet, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of testing, I think, and see how we get on.
We do look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Ollie, I have to ask, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, I'll just say thanks to yourself, obviously, for the job you do and all the Next Gen guys that organise the series, and my pirate mates, who, yeah, they'll know who they are.
Well, I'm sure they'll appreciate the mention. I'm sure the admins at NextGen also appreciate your gratitude. I do indeed as well. But with that, Ollie, congratulations on your double win today. A dominant form from yourself. And we do look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time at Magny-Cours.
Cool, thanks very much. See you next week.
All the best. So hearing there from Ollie Wayne, our double GT3 Silver class winner for today for Next Gen Racing Purple in what was practically a near faultless day, albeit there were some faults there which he admitted to, including the spin in the feature race, but at the same time he looked unstoppable in terms of outright pace, and as we do see the wonderful Mercedes roar its way on past us here in the replay at turn number 3 midway through the race. The question is, can he carry on this form just a little bit longer in the final 2 rounds to potentially give himself an opportunity to charge for a top 5 finish come the very end? Well, he'll be the master of that destiny, but given that the way he's been driving today, I'd say it's highly possible as time is running out in the championship. But as we now come on to our 3rd and final interview of today, we're going to another GT3 class driver, albeit we're going to be going from the GT3 Silver class to GT3 Gold class, and we'll very shortly have Stefan Wessels joining me in the interview room. Now, of course, whilst we get ready for Stefan to join us, it'd be interesting to hear his perspective on what really has been perhaps a missed opportunity today, being denied the podium as a minimum in the sprint race, and then in the feature race, just not quite able to close the gap down enough to chase down Eric Benson come the finish. But as he does join me now in the interview room, Stefan, I have to admit, it must be a bit of mixed emotions for yourself today. In the sprint, you were on course to finish on the podium to be denied by a post-race penalty. And in the feature, it looked as though you just needed a few more laps to hunt down Benson, albeit you were denied some of that time by traffic midway through the race. Did it feel as though it just didn't quite come your way today, or were there a lot of positives from Monza regardless?
How's it, Paul? Evening. I think the race tonight was okay. Wasn't bad. Pace was alright. I was catching Benson a bit in the feature, but let's start at the sprint. Let's start at quali. I did a lap that would have been pole position, but I went millimeters wide. That made the lap not count, so that sucked. Still managed to get in the top 5. We were everybody on turn 1 was doing fairly alright, and Benson had a small touch of Gavin, and I had nowhere to go, so I just touched him and then drove around him and continued going. Then at the next turn, I kind of straightened his car out, and at the next turn it was myself, him. He was on my outside, so I braked for him, and then one of his teammates came on my inside. So they're going 3 wide into the following chicane, which ended in another X4. And yeah, at the end of the race, Fowler and Gavin had coming together. Fowler spun in front of me, I touched him. That basically gave me a black flag. So, to be fair, in my opinion, I finished 2nd in that race because I did not cause any of those incidents. So, I will definitely protest that.
I can completely understand your perspective on that, and I would agree with you. You drove for that 2nd place, and well, fingers crossed the protest does work out in your favour. But of course, going from that 2nd place finish in the sprint race and then coming into the feature, again, we saw a very determined drive from yourself from start to finish, but it looked as though their progress was a little bit slower with the fact you had to pick your way gradually through the GT3 class, and everybody was very close on pace, particularly on the straights.
Well, everyone is close on pace except for the Ferraris and the Mercs, which are a bit faster. So in the feature race, it started alright. I gained the position but lost the position, so cars just swapped out a bit. I was behind what's his name? Can't think of his name now. In any case, I was behind him and I lost a bit of time because again I had damage at the turn 2 where I don't know, it just drove me straight off the road off the chicane. I don't know, people don't use their brakes in the first lap. So I had to kind of bounce over the chicane, damage car again, try and catch. And I caught up, eventually overtook before the pit stops, added a lap more fuel. So then that meant that he can pass me again, so I had to overtake him on track again. And the Ferrari is just so fast on the straights that I couldn't just race my normal race. I had to look in my mirror for probably a good 20 minutes or so until I got an opportunity to get about a 1.5 second gap on him. And from there, I was chasing Benson, which I brought down from 5.5 or so all the way down to 1.6, and then he ran out of fuel on the line. So yes, it was tight. I was pushing, I was sliding, almost lost it a couple of times. There was a bunch of times where the LMPs would overtake you on the straight, pull in front of you in the braking zone, and then brake earlier than what you would brake, which is obviously can be very disastrous. More than one occasion that happened. Actually, coming to turn 1, I think it was the overtake I did on Mork, where I was in his slipstream. An LMP came past us, and I braked so late, I overtook the LMP and him into turn 1. But I still made the apex, but it was just crazy. Overtaking the LMP in the brakes. But yeah, I think it was alright. It's P2. I think considering the race I had, P2 was good enough. Yeah, enjoyed it. It was fun though.
Oh, indeed. It looks as though you're having fun out there. And of course, we know the Audi is one of those cars which it's very sensitive to tyre wear and also being pushed through medium speed corners. And, well, just take us through from your perspective. The Ascari chicane, a very fast chicane. And in the Audi, that must have been a roller coaster ride every lap.
Well, actually, with the update to the new ABS system and the way the guys are punishing the brakes now, the front seem to wear slightly more. So I was actually understeering through a Ascari and Parabolica. So it's not the normal Audi, twitchy Audi, it's more the thing won't turn, which was annoying. But so to combat that, you kind of have to move the brakes rearwards, be very, very gentle on the brakes into the turn, which makes the entry to the turn very dodgy. So coming into Parabolica is very dodgy. But then after that, the car won't slide. The car just understeers through the rest of Parabolica. So that was a bit annoying, but I think halfway through the race, kind of adjusted my driving style accordingly.
Well, indeed, with those adjustments, you look very comfortable in the car. And with 2 rounds to go and another 2 results in the bag today, how are you feeling for the Circuit de Nevers Magny Cours in a week's time?
I'm not. Look, that track is so tight. It's gonna be madness. It's gonna be fun, but it's gonna be madness. That track is so tight.
Oh, indeed. Well, hopefully you won't get caught up in the madness and you can have a strong round in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Stefan, of course, it's a pleasure to have you here. But I do have to ask, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
It's 1 a.m. in South Africa, so everybody is sleeping. But I'll give you a shout out to all the NXTGEN guys for running an awesome league and to you for the awesome commentating.
Well, That's very kind of you, Stefan, and I'm sure the admins will really appreciate that, and I do too in terms of your feedback. But with that, it's been a pleasure to have you join me in the interview room as always. Congratulations on your performances today, and well, we do hope that maybe I'll get that result in the sprint reverted, but we do look also forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time in France.
Cool, cheers. Have a good evening.
All the best.
Bye.
So hearing that from Stefan Wessels, our GT3 Gold driver from Racing Team Astra, and you can understand, of course, his frustration to a degree with regards to what happened in the sprint race after what was a strong performance in qualifying, and then translating that into the start of the sprint race, battling to be on the podium for P2. And in his opinion, indeed, we've been there as drivers in terms of picking up multiple instant points whereby he feels they're not his fault and just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then ending up with his race being subject to a post-race time penalty that drops him from P2 to P6, all because he happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And well, we'll have to wait and see what the student outcome is there. But of course, a lot of positives to take away from today, not just his outright pace, but also really delivering in the feature race. And whilst he missed out by half a second come the checker flag versus Eric Benson's drive to the win, we ran out of fuel on the finish line. I think Wessels will definitely move forward from today, feeling as though the pace is coming his way, and with 2 rounds to go, it's all to play for in the hunt for a top 3 finish in the championship. And of course, with Magny-Cours being so tight, I wouldn't be surprised that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on track position. If we know one thing, when Wessels puts his mind to it, he'll definitely be flying for pole position in qualifying next week. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. You've just heard from Stefan Wessels, the GT3 Gold driver from Racing Team Astra, but you've previously heard from this evening the GT3 Silver driver from NXTGEN Racing Purple of Ollie Wayne, and we of course started off with Kevin Stringer, the LMP2 class driver from SCCR Sim Sports. Thank you to them once again for joining us for interviews, and congratulations to them on their fantastic results from today. But of course, now, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions to what lies in wait. But before that, we must say thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the NXTGEN racing community in terms of what we do both on the virtual and the real world circuit, well, you can always check out our official website. That's at nxtgenracing.co.uk, and as you do see it pop up on the screen now, it is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all. And indeed, we've been hosting leagues for over 16.5 years on PC and console sim racing platforms, and had multiple successful series. And if you do want to find out all about our different series upcoming and ongoing, do head to our website to find out further information. Alternatively, if you don't want to necessarily go to our website, you can also go to our Facebook group. That's on facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing, where you can find out all the latest news and information on what's happening at NextGen Racing. But in terms of what lies next for our drivers here in the Proto GT3 Championship Season 2, was Stefan Wessels just alluded to, it's tight, it's twisty, it's highly technical, it's the Circuit de Magny-Cours, and it will be host to round number 9 of the championship next Wednesday on the 22nd of March 2023. Of course, in multi-class racing, it's all about timing it right to make your way through the traffic and timing that pass to perfection. But a Magny-Cours is going to demand the utmost precision from our drivers in a circuit that takes no prisoners when it comes to small mistakes being costly. How will all of our drivers get on in the final sprint and feature race combination of the season? Find out next week. But until then, we have been NXTGEN Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.